Welcome aboard, friends. You're now tuned into Harryverse X. We're super excited to share today's story with you. What if Ben 10 found Harry at age 6 in the cupboard and the Omnitrix fused with his magic creating alien spells? If you enjoy what we do here, the best way to support us is by liking, commenting, and subscribing. We read every comment. Ready? Let's go. Chapter 1, The Green Flash. Watch the road, Ben. Gwen shouted as the rust bucket swerved violently to avoid an energy blast that scorched the pavement where they'd been seconds before. I'm trying. Ben Tennyson yelled back, gripping the steering wheel of his grandfather's RV with white knuckles. At 16, he wasn't technically supposed to be driving, but when an alien criminal with dimensional tech starts tearing holes in reality, normal rules go out the window. Kevin, tell me you've got a lock on this guy. Kevin Levin, hunched over a cobbled-together tracking device in the passenger seat, banged the side of the machine in frustration. He's jumping dimensions faster than I can track him. 1 minute in our reality, the next, poof, gone to who knows where. Another purple energy bolt sizzled past, this one clipping the side mirror. Behind them, a humanoid figure with blue crystalline skin and what looked like a modified null-void projector mounted on his arm was gaining ground, skating on a self-generated ice path. That's it. Ben slammed on the brakes, sending the rust bucket into a controlled skid. You guys keep tracking. I'm going alien. Before Gwen could protest, Ben was out the door, the familiar green and black Omnitrix gleaming on his wrist. He didn't hesitate, slapping down on the dial as the alien closed in. Humongosaur. The transformation washed over him in seconds, replacing the teenager with a 12-foot dinosaur-like alien. Ben's massive fist slammed into the ice path, shattering it and sending the crystalline alien tumbling. End of the line, Cryosplitter, Ben growled, using the name they'd given their mysterious opponent. Hand over the dimensional tech before you tear apart the multiverse. The alien laughed, a sound like cracking ice. You understand nothing, shapeshifter. The boundaries between worlds are already falling. I'm simply accelerating the process. He raised his arm, the device powering up with an ominous whine. Ben, look out. Gwen was out of the rust bucket now, her hands glowing with mana. He's opening another portal. Too late. The blast wasn't aimed at Ben but at the ground between them, instantly forming a swirling vortex of purple and green energy. The dimensional rift expanded rapidly, its gravitational pull immediate and overwhelming. Gwen. Kevin. Ben reached for them, but they were too far away. The vortex pulled him inexorably closer, his dinosaur feet leaving deep gouges in the asphalt. The device. Kevin shouted, throwing something small and metallic toward Ben. It'll help you find your way back. Ben caught it just as Cryosplitter fired again, this time hitting the Omnitrix symbol on Ben's chest. Pain lanced through him, the familiar green energy of the Omnitrix suddenly pulsing erratically. What did you? But his question was cut short as the vortex swallowed him whole, Cryosplitter diving in immediately after. The last thing Ben saw was Gwen's horrified face before reality twisted, stretched, and then snapped like an overstretched rubber band. Dimensional travel, Ben decided, was officially the worst. Worse than being trapped as Wrath during an etiquette dinner. Worse than the time he'd accidentally turned into Stinkfly during his school dance. He'd reverted to human form somewhere in the swirling maelstrom, and now tumbled helplessly through a kaleidoscope of realities, catching glimpses of worlds where dinosaurs still roamed, planets made entirely of candy, and at one point, a universe that seemed to consist solely of dancing purple squids. Come on, he muttered, frantically fiddling with the Omnitrix. It sparked occasionally with green electricity but refused to activate. Whatever Cryosplitter had hit it with was interfering with its function. Any alien would be good right about now. XLR-8, Jet Ray, even Walkatrout would help. The device Kevin had thrown him was clutched tightly in his other hand, some kind of tracker, if he had to guess. But with the Omnitrix malfunctioning, he had no way to control his trajectory through the dimensional void. Suddenly, the swirling colors coalesced, a tunnel of energy forming ahead of him. At its end, he could see darkness, stars, and what looked like a planet. Earth? It seemed like Earth, but something told him it wasn't his Earth. Not like I have options, Ben grumbled as the tunnel pulled him forward at impossible speed. He tucked himself into a ball, bracing for impact as the end of the tunnel rushed toward him. The last thing he registered was the Omnitrix suddenly flaring to life on his wrist, pulsing with intense green energy that enveloped his entire body just as he broke through the dimensional barrier. Number 4 Privet Drive was exactly like every other house on the street, meticulously maintained lawn, polished car in the driveway, curtains drawn at precisely the same height. The only difference on this particular night was the strange green meteor that streaked overhead around 11 p.m., drawing the curious gaze of Mrs. Number 7 who happened to be letting her cat out. The meteor disappeared behind the row of houses backing onto the small wooded area that separated Privet Drive from Magnolia Crescent, and was promptly forgotten by the sole witness, who decided it must have been a peculiarly colored airplane light. In the small copse of trees, Ben Tennyson groaned and rolled over. His impact had created a shallow crater, uprooting a young oak and sending dirt and leaves showering in all directions. The Omnitrix on his wrist pulsed once, twice, then settled back to its normal soft green glow. Note to self, Ben muttered, sitting up and rubbing his head, dimensional travel without proper equipment equals massive headache. He glanced around at the trees. At least I landed somewhere with oxygen. Standing on wobbly legs, Ben took stock of his situation. The Omnitrix seemed to be functioning again, though when he activated it, the holographic display showed only static for a moment before clearing to reveal his alien roster. Kevin's device was still clutched in his hand, a small metallic disc with a tiny screen that currently showed nothing but a blinking red dot. Presumably him. Great. So I know where I am, but not where I need to go. Ben pocketed the device and checked his phone. No signal, as expected. Okay, first things first. Figure out where, and when, I am, then track down Cryosplitter before he does whatever villainous thing he came here to do. The houses visible through the trees looked normal enough. Cars that could be from his own time period. Street lights. Nothing obviously alien or futuristic. Only one way to find out, Ben said, activating the Omnitrix again. He cycled through his available transformations, settling on one that would attract minimal attention. Come on, give me something stealthy. He slammed his hand down on the dial, green light washing over him. When it faded, a ghostly, shadowy figure floated where Ben had stood. Big Chill. Perfect. His raspy voice was barely a whisper as he turned intangible and flew toward the nearest house. The neighborhood was quiet, most windows dark. Ben phased through the wall of a house with lights still on, finding himself in what looked like a perfectly ordinary living room. A television showed what appeared to be a normal news broadcast, something about economic concerns in Britain. So I'm in England, Ben murmured. And judging by the TV and furniture, sometime around my own era. A newspaper on the coffee table confirmed his theory, July 30th, 1986. Not too far off from his own time, all things considered. Alright, different Earth, different time period, but nothing I can't handle. Big Chill phased back out of the house and flew higher, scanning the neighborhood. Now, where would an ice-generating alien with dimensional tech hide? That's when he noticed something odd. One of the houses, number 4, according to the polished brass numbers, had a strange energy signature visible to Big Chill's infrared vision. Nothing dramatic, just a faint shimmer around the property that the other houses lacked. That looks promising, he whispered, gliding down toward the house. As he approached, he picked up something else, a small heat signature coming from under the stairs. While the upper floor showed 2 large heat signatures, adults, presumably, and a smaller one, a child, this tiny signature was separated, confined to a small space on the ground floor. Curiosity piqued, Big Chill phased through the front door and found himself in a spotless hallway. Family photos lined the walls, showing a large, beefy man, a thin, horse-faced woman, and an extremely round boy of about 6. Noticeably absent from any photo was a fourth family member. A soft whimper drew his attention to a cupboard under the stairs, a cupboard with several locks on the outside. What the? Big Chill floated closer, his ghostly form casting no shadow in the dim light filtering in from the street lamps outside. Another whimper, definitely coming from inside the cupboard. Ben hesitated only a moment before phasing his head through the door. What he saw made his ectoplasmic blood boil. A tiny boy, no older than 6, was curled up on a thin, stained mattress. The space was cramped, dusty, and littered with broken toys. A single bare bulb hung from the ceiling, currently off. The boy himself was painfully thin, swimming in clothes several sizes too large, with messy black hair and, Ben noticed with a start, a fresh bruise forming on one cheek. "Hey," Big Chill whispered before he could stop himself. "Are you okay?" The boy's eyes snapped open, revealing startlingly green irises. For a moment, he stared at the floating, spectral blue head that had appeared through his cupboard door. Then, surprisingly, instead of screaming, he simply sighed. "You're not real," the boy whispered back. "You're just another dream. Like the flying motorcycle." Big Chill phased the rest of his body into the cupboard, which was barely large enough for him to hover in. "I'm pretty real, kid." "Name's B," he caught himself, Big Chill. "What's yours?" The boy sat up, rubbing his eyes. "I'm Harry. Harry Potter." He looked at Big Chill with surprising calmness. "Are you a ghost or a monster?" "Neither, actually. I'm an alien." "Well, sort of. It's complicated." Big Chill's 4 wings flexed in the confined space. "More importantly, why are you locked in a cupboard? Where are your parents?" Harry's expression fell. "Dead. Car crash when I was a baby. I live with my aunt and uncle and cousin." His matter-of-fact tone about such things was heartbreaking. "The cupboard's my room." "Your room," Big Chill repeated flatly. "And I'm guessing that bruise didn't come from walking into a door." Harry touched his cheek self-consciously. "Uncle Vernon gets angry when strange things happen around me. I didn't mean to turn my teacher's wig blue, it just happened." Something clicked in Ben's mind. The energy signature around the house. The strange things happening around the boy. This wasn't just an abused kid, though that was bad enough. This was something else. A noise from upstairs, heavy footsteps, made them both freeze. "Boy," a gruff voice bellowed. "Stop that infernal muttering or you'll get another smack." Harry shrank back against the wall. "Sorry, Uncle Vernon," he called out, his voice small. The footsteps retreated, accompanied by grumbling about ungrateful freaks. Big Chill's eyes narrowed to slits. "Harry," he said softly, "how would you like to get out of here?" Hope flickered in the boy's eyes before dying. "I can't. They'll find me. They always do. Not if you're with me." Big Chill reached out, hesitating before touching the boy's shoulder. "I promise I'll protect you." Harry studied the alien's face, searching for deception. Finding none, he nodded slowly. "Okay." Just as Harry reached for Big Chill's hand, a beeping sound came from the symbol on Big Chill's chest. Red flashes lit up the tiny cupboard. "Oh, not now," Big Chill groaned as green light enveloped him. When it faded, a teenager with brown hair and a green jacket stood hunched in the cupboard, the Omnitrix on his wrist. Harry's eyes widened to the size of saucers. You're a person." "Yeah, sometimes," Ben whispered, offering a sheepish grin. "Like I said, it's complicated. I'm Ben, by the way. Ben Tennyson." Before Harry could respond, thunderous footsteps pounded down the stairs directly above them, sending dust raining down. "What's that light? Boy, what have you done now?" The cupboard door rattled as the locks were being undone. Ben looked around frantically, but there was nowhere to hide, no way out except through the door that was about to open. Harry was trembling now, genuine fear in his eyes. "He's really mad," he whispered. The final lock clicked open, and the door swung wide, revealing an enormous man with a purple face and a bushy mustache. Vernon Dursley took in the scene, a strange teenager crouched in his nephew's cupboard, and his face went from purple to white, then back to purple at remarkable speed. "Who the bloody hell are you?" he roared, reaching in to grab Ben. "Burglar. Petunia, call the police." Ben ducked the meaty hand and pushed back, sending Vernon stumbling. "I'm not a burglar. What could he say? A superhero from another dimension? A social worker making a surprise visit at 11 p.m.? A friend of Harry's?" Vernon's eyes bulged. "The freak doesn't have friends." He lunged again, this time managing to grab Ben's jacket. "How did you get in my house?" Ben struggled, trying to activate the Omnitrix, but Vernon had his wrist pinned. Behind them, Harry had scrambled out of the cupboard and stood pressed against the wall, shaking. "Let go of me!" Ben shouted, twisting in Vernon's grip. A thin woman in a nightgown appeared at the top of the stairs, shrieking when she saw the scene below. "Vernon! What's happening? Who is that boy?" "Call the police, Petunia. We've got an intruder." Vernon was attempting to wrestle Ben to the ground now, his face growing redder by the second. In the commotion, no one immediately noticed what was happening to Harry. The boy's fear and stress had reached a breaking point, and as often happened in such moments, his uncontrolled magic began to manifest. A wind picked up inside the hallway, swirling dust and small objects around them. Vernon noticed first. "No!" he shouted, releasing Ben to round on his nephew. "Stop that freakishness right now." He raised his hand to strike Harry, and several things happened at once. Ben shouted "No!" and lunged to protect Harry. Harry threw his hands up in a defensive gesture, raw magic surging outward. And the Omnitrix, sensing both the danger and the proximity to Harry's magical outburst, activated on its own, scanning the unknown energy signature. The resulting flash was not the usual green but a blinding mixture of green and gold that filled the entire hallway. Vernon was thrown backward against the front door. Petunia screamed from the stairs. And Ben found himself transformed, not into an alien form, but surrounded by a green energy field that connected to Harry in pulsing streams of light. "What's happening?" Harry gasped, staring at his hands, which were glowing with the same green energy that normally characterized Ben's transformations. "I don't know." Ben tried to deactivate the Omnitrix, but it remained locked in some kind of scanning mode, the dial spinning rapidly as it processed Harry's magical signature. Vernon Dursley staggered to his feet, his face now white with terror. "What have you done to him?" he demanded, pointing a shaking finger at Harry. "What kind of freak are you?" "I'm trying to help him," Ben said through gritted teeth, still attempting to control the Omnitrix. "Which is more than you've ever done." The energy connecting Ben and Harry pulsed brighter, and Harry gasped as knowledge suddenly flooded his mind, images of aliens, their abilities, their names. At the same time, Ben felt a strange new power washing through him, wild, unpredictable, but undeniably similar to the energy he detected around the house. The Omnitrix gave a final, triumphant beep, and the scanning beam retracted. The symbol on the dial had changed slightly, now showing tiny runes around its edge that Ben had never seen before. "Ben." Harry's voice was different somehow, more confident. "I feel weird." Before Ben could answer, Vernon charged them again, bellowing incoherently. This time, Harry didn't cower. Instead, he thrust his hand forward instinctively, shouting a word that came to his mind unbidden: "Heat blast." A jet of flame erupted from Harry's palm, not wild and uncontrolled, but focused like a blowtorch. It didn't hit Vernon directly but struck the floor at his feet, causing him to leap back with a yelp of terror. The boy's gone completely mental. Vernon grabbed a vase from a side table and hurled it at them. "I always said that freakishness would be the death of us." Ben pushed Harry behind him, but the boy stepped forward again, his eyes glowing slightly with green energy. "Leave us alone!" Harry shouted, and this time, crackling flames appeared around his entire body, though they didn't seem to be burning him. His appearance remained human, but the fire surrounding him gave him an unmistakable resemblance to Ben's heat blast form. Petunia, who had been frozen in horror on the stairs, finally found her voice. "He's burning down the house. Dudley! Duddekins, wake up! We have to get out!" The flames were spreading now, catching on the hallway carpet. Vernon grabbed his wife's hand and pulled her toward the front door, pausing only to point a trembling finger at Harry and Ben. "You're no nephew of mine. You hear me, boy? You and your freak friend can burn with the house for all I care." They stumbled out the front door, Vernon already shouting for neighbors to call the fire brigade. "Okay, this is bad," Ben said, looking around at the rapidly spreading flames. "Harry, can you control it?" Harry shook his head, panic returning to his eyes. "I don't know how. It just happened." Ben tried the Omnitrix again, relieved when it responded normally this time. He quickly dialed to an alien form he knew could handle this situation. "Stand back." The green flash transformed him into a red, manta ray-like alien. "Water hazard. Come on, Harry, we need to get out of here before the whole place goes up." Water Hazard extended his hands, spraying concentrated jets of water at the worst of the flames while using his other arm to guide Harry toward the front door. The fire was spreading too quickly to extinguish completely. Whatever fusion had occurred between the Omnitrix and Harry's magic had created flames that were particularly stubborn. They burst out the front door into the night air, where several neighbors were already gathered on the lawn, staring in horror at the burning house. Vernon was pointing at them, shouting to anyone who would listen, "That's them. The freaks who broke in and set our house on fire. Someone stop them." "Time to go," Water Hazard muttered, scooping Harry up. "Hold on tight, kid." With Harry securely in his arms, Water Hazard leaped over the garden fence and sprinted down the street, using his enhanced strength and speed to put distance between them and Privet Drive. Behind them, sirens already wailed in the distance. "Where are we going?" Harry asked, clinging to Ben's armored form. "Away from here," Water Hazard replied grimly. "Far away. And then we're going to figure out what just happened to you, to both of us." By the time Ben felt safe enough to stop, they were deep in a park several miles from Privet Drive. The Omnitrix timed out as they reached a secluded area with a small pond, transforming him back to human form. Harry, exhausted from the night's events and the strange new power that had surged through him, sat heavily on a park bench. "Are you okay?" Ben asked, sitting beside him. Harry nodded slowly. "I think so." He looked at his hands, which were normal now, no trace of the flames that had enveloped them earlier. "What happened to me back there? How did I make fire like your alien?" Ben activated the Omnitrix, studying the modified display. "I think, when your magic activated, my what?" Harry interrupted, eyes wide. "Magic," Ben repeated. "That's what you were doing before I showed up, right? Making strange things happen. Your teacher's wig turning blue." Harry's mouth opened and closed several times. "Magic isn't real," he finally said, though he didn't sound convinced. "Uncle Vernon says, your uncle also locks you in a cupboard," Ben pointed out. "I wouldn't take his word on anything." He fiddled with the Omnitrix dial. "Where I come from, there are aliens and tech that might seem like magic to some people. But what you were doing, that was different." The Omnitrix recognized it as an unknown energy source. "The Omni what?" Ben held up his wrist, showing the watch-like device. "The Omnitrix. It lets me transform into different alien species. But when it scanned your energy, something new happened. It looks like it created some kind of link between us." Harry looked at the device with wonder. "So that's how you turned into the ghost and the water alien?" "Big Chill and Water Hazard, yeah." Ben scrolled through his alien roster. I have access to thousands of different alien forms, though I usually stick to a few favorites. And now, somehow, you seem to have access to them too, but through your magic instead of transformation. Harry experimented, holding out his hand like he had at Privet Drive. Heat blast, he whispered. Nothing happened. Maybe it only works in high-stress situations, Ben suggested. Or maybe you need to learn to control it better. Either way. He looked around the dark park, aware that they were two kids alone at night with no resources. We need to find shelter and figure out our next move. A thought struck Harry. Won't my aunt and uncle be looking for me? Or the police? Ben grimaced. Probably. But I don't think going back is an option. Not after what happened. He didn't add what he was thinking, that he'd sooner face Vilgax alone than return Harry to those abusive monsters. I don't want to go back, Harry said quietly. Then you won't, Ben promised. We'll figure something out. He stood, offering his hand to Harry. First things first, we need somewhere safe to stay while we work out what's happened to you. And I need to track down an interdimensional criminal before he causes trouble in this reality. Harry took his hand, a small smile forming. That sounds like superhero stuff. Ben grinned. That's exactly what it is, kid. Welcome to the hero business. First lesson, when everything goes crazy, just roll with it. A distant police siren made them both tense. Second lesson, Ben added, know when to run. Come on. As they hurried deeper into the park, neither noticed the cloaked figure watching them from the shadows, or the silver cat that raced away into the night, heading north with urgent news about a magical anomaly unlike anything the wizarding world had ever seen. Dawn found them huddled in an abandoned groundskeeper's shed on the far side of the park. Ben had used jury-rig to repair the broken lock and scrounge together some basic comforts from the limited materials available. A tarp became curtains for the grimy windows, and ancient burlap sacks stuffed with dry leaves formed makeshift bedding. Harry slept fitfully on this improvised bed while Ben kept watch, scrolling through the Omnitrix's modified interface. The new runes that had appeared during the fusion event were unlike any alien language he recognized. Some resembled the symbols used in magic shows, stars, crescent moons, and geometric patterns that looked almost like circuit diagrams but not quite. What did you do this time, Omnitrix? Ben muttered, poking at the display. The device beeped softly but offered no explanation. A groan from the corner announced Harry's awakening. The boy sat up, rubbing his eyes and looking around in momentary confusion before the previous night's events came flooding back. Not a dream, then, he said, spotting Ben. Afraid not. Ben moved over to sit next to him. How are you feeling? Harry considered the question seriously. Hungry. Tired. But. He flexed his fingers, better than I usually do after strange things happen. That's something. Ben rummaged in his pockets, producing a somewhat squashed energy bar. Not much of a breakfast, but it's all I've got right now. Harry accepted it gratefully. As he ate, Ben noticed the boy studying him with curious intensity. What? Ben asked. You're real, right? Not just another strange thing that'll disappear. The question hit Ben harder than any punch he'd taken as Humongosaur. I'm real, Harry. And I'm not disappearing. Harry nodded, seemingly satisfied. So what do we do now? Good question. Ben activated the Omnitrix again, this time bringing up a holographic display of Kevin's device. I need to track down the alien that I followed here. He's probably up to no good, and he might be my only way home. Home. Harry's voice held a note of alarm. You're leaving. Eventually, yeah. I have family and friends in my dimension who need me. Seeing Harry's crestfallen expression, Ben quickly added, but not until I'm sure you're safe. That's priority 1. Harry visibly relaxed. What's priority 2? Figuring out exactly what happened when the Omnitrix scanned your magic, Ben said, gesturing to Harry's hands. That was no ordinary power transfer. If you can access alien abilities through spells, we need to understand how it works. Can we try now? Harry asked eagerly. Ben glanced out the grimy window. The shed was isolated enough, and it was still early. Sure, but let's keep it small. Nothing fiery. They moved outside, finding a small clearing behind the shed where they wouldn't be easily spotted from the main park paths. Ben activated the Omnitrix's display, cycling through his alien forms. Let's try something simple first, he suggested, stopping on a familiar silhouette. Gray matter is one of my first aliens. He's small but super intelligent. Maybe that would be safer to start with than Heat Blast. Harry nodded, holding out his hand and concentrating. Gray matter, he said clearly. Nothing happened. Try visualizing it, Ben suggested. Think about what you want the spell to do. Harry closed his eyes, his face screwing up with effort. Gray matter, he repeated. A faint green shimmer appeared around his hands, then faded. You almost had it. Ben encouraged. What were you thinking about? Being smart, Harry said. Solving problems. Ben nodded thoughtfully. Maybe it's not just about the alien's name, but their core ability. When you used Heat Blast's power, you were feeling threatened, desperate. I was angry, Harry admitted. At Uncle Vernon. Emotion might be the key, Ben mused. Let's try XLR8. He's all about speed. Think about needing to move really fast, about zooming away from danger. Harry closed his eyes again, picturing being chased, needing to escape. XLR8, he whispered. This time, the green glow was stronger, coalescing around his legs. For a brief moment, Harry's feet seemed to blur, and he suddenly shot forward about 3 meters before tumbling onto the grass. Whoa! Ben rushed to help him up. You did it. Harry was laughing as he stood, exhilarated despite the fall. I did. I was so fast. Did you see? I barely could, Ben grinned. Let's try, a rustle in the bushes behind them cut him off. Both boys froze, turning toward the sound. A moment later, a large tawny owl swooped out, circled once overhead, and landed on a nearby fence post. It stared at them with unnerving intensity, particularly at Harry. That's weird, Ben muttered. Aren't owls nocturnal? Harry approached the owl cautiously. Hello, he said, feeling slightly foolish for talking to a bird. To both their surprise, the owl hooted softly and extended its leg, which had a small rolled parchment attached to it. Ben and Harry exchanged bewildered looks. Is that, for us? Harry asked. The owl hooted again, more insistently. Cautiously, Harry reached out and untied the parchment. The moment he had it in his hand, the owl took flight, disappearing over the trees. What does it say? Ben asked, moving closer. Harry unrolled the parchment with trembling fingers. The message was brief, written in emerald green ink with elegant handwriting, stay where you are. Friends are coming to help. You are not alone, Harry Potter. Friends? Harry's voice was barely audible. I don't have any friends. Ben placed a hand on his shoulder. You do now. But we need to be careful. We have no idea who sent this. Harry studied the message again. How did they find me? How do they know my name? Good questions. Ben activated the Omnitrix, scrolling quickly to a specific alien. And I'm not waiting around to find out. If someone's tracking you, we need to move. But what if they really are friends? Harry asked, conflicted. What if they know about magic? Ben hesitated. The kid had a point. If magic was real in this dimension, there might be others like Harry who could help explain what was happening. But years of dealing with villains and traps had made him cautious. "Tell you what," he said finally. "We'll stay nearby but not right here. I'll go alien and keep watch. If these friends look trustworthy, we can approach them. If not, we're out of here." Harry nodded, relieved. "Okay." Ben slammed his hand down on the Omnitrix dial, transforming in a flash of green light. Standing in his place was a velociraptor-like alien with wheels for feet and a sleek, aerodynamic helmet. "XLR-8, the alien announced in a raspy, accelerated voice. "Hop on, Harry. Let's find a good vantage point." Harry climbed onto XLR-8's back, holding tight as the speedster alien zipped them to a hilltop overlooking the clearing, fast enough that they would appear as nothing more than a brief blur to any watching eyes. From their new position, partially concealed by trees, they had a clear view of the groundskeeper's shed while remaining hidden themselves. "Now we wait," XLR-8 said, settling into a crouched position. They didn't have to wait long. Within 20 minutes, two figures appeared with a loud crack that made Harry jump. One was a tall, severe-looking woman wearing emerald-green robes and a pointed hat. The other was even more peculiar, an ancient man with a silver beard long enough to tuck into his belt, half-moon spectacles, and robes of deep purple embroidered with silver stars. "Definitely not normal people," XLR-8 whispered. "Any idea who they are?" Harry shook his head, watching with wide eyes as the strange pair approached the shed, wands extended cautiously before them. "The magical signature is extraordinary, Albus," the woman was saying. "Unlike anything I've ever encountered." "Are you certain it was Potter's accidental magic?" "The monitoring charms were quite specific, Minerva," the old man replied. "Though I admit, this energy has unusual characteristics. Almost as if it's been influenced by an external force." They reached the shed, finding it empty. The old man, Albus, waved his wand in intricate patterns, his expression growing increasingly perplexed. "Curious," he murmured. "Very curious indeed. The boy was here, certainly, but there's another signature intertwined with his. Something not entirely human." XLR-8 tensed. "They're tracking my Omnitrix energy. Time to go." "Wait," Harry whispered. "They know about magic. They might know what happened to me." The old man suddenly straightened, looking directly toward their hiding place. "We mean you no harm, Harry Potter," he called out, his voice carrying clearly across the distance. "Nor your unusual friend. We simply wish to help." XLR-8 and Harry exchanged startled glances. "How did he?" Harry began. "Magic, I presume," XLR-8 replied dryly. "Question is, do we trust them?" Harry bit his lip, then made a decision. "I want to talk to them. About magic. About my parents." XLR-8 studied the boy's determined face and sighed. "All right. But I'm staying alien until I'm sure they're safe." In a blur of motion, XLR-8 carried Harry back down to the clearing, stopping a cautious distance from the two robed figures. The old man's eyes twinkled with interest at XLR-8's appearance, while the woman's hand tightened around her wand. "Fascinating," the old man murmured. "Not a transfiguration, nor any magical creature I recognize." "Who are you?" Harry asked, stepping slightly forward while staying close to XLR-8's protective presence. The old man bowed slightly. "My name is Albus Dumbledore, headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. This is Professor Minerva McGonagall, my deputy headmistress. And you, of course, are Harry Potter." His gaze shifted to XLR-8. "Though I'm afraid your companion is unknown to us." "I'm Ben Tennyson," XLR-8 said, deciding that honesty might be the best approach. "I'm not from around here." "Indeed," Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. "Your energy signature suggests origins far beyond our world. Interdimensional travel, perhaps?" XLR-8's eyes widened in surprise. "You know about that?" Theoretical magical research is something of a hobby of mine, Dumbledore replied casually. Though I must say, your method of dimensional traversal is quite unlike any magical technique I've encountered. The Omnitrix symbol on XLR8's chest began beeping, flashing red. Great timing, he muttered as green light enveloped him, returning him to human form. Professor McGonagall gasped at the transformation, while Dumbledore merely looked more intrigued. Most remarkable, the headmaster said. And that device on your wrist is the source of your transformative abilities? Ben instinctively covered the Omnitrix with his other hand. Look, I'm sure you have a lot of questions. So do we. But my priority right now is keeping Harry safe. As is ours, Mr. Tennyson, McGonagall said stiffly. Mr. Potter has been missing from his relative's home for nearly 12 hours. There was a fire, that they're saying we started, Ben interjected. But what they won't tell you is that they were keeping Harry locked in a cupboard. That his uncle was about to hit him. Again, judging by the bruises. McGonagall's lips thinned to a white line, her gaze darting to Harry for confirmation. The boy's downcast eyes and subtle nod were answer enough. I told you, Albus, she said in a low, dangerous voice. I told you they were the worst sort of muggles. Dumbledore's expression grew grave. It seems I have much to answer for. He knelt down to Harry's level. Harry, I deeply regret that you have suffered. I placed you with your aunt and uncle believing you would be safe there, protected by ancient magic connected to your mother's sacrifice. My mother? Harry looked up sharply. What sacrifice? Uncle Vernon said they died in a car crash. A shadow passed over Dumbledore's face. A car crash? No, Harry. Your parents were murdered by a dark wizard named Voldemort. Your mother died protecting you, and her love created a magical protection that saved you from his killing curse. That's how you got the scar on your forehead. Harry's hand went to his lightning bolt scar, his expression stunned. Ben stepped forward protectively. Look, this is clearly a lot for him to take in all at once. And we still have the issue of what happened when my Omnitrix interacted with Harry's magic. Indeed. Dumbledore stood again, stroking his beard thoughtfully. That magical surge was what alerted us to the situation. The Ministry's sensors detected unprecedented magical activity at Privet Drive. Can you explain it? Harry asked eagerly. Why I can do alien magic now? Dumbledore and McGonagall exchanged perplexed glances. Alien magic? McGonagall repeated. Harry nodded and held out his hand, concentrating. Diamondhead, he said clearly, focusing on the feeling of needing protection, of wanting to be impervious to harm. Green energy coursed over his arm, which suddenly transformed into a crystalline structure resembling Ben's Diamondhead form, though the rest of Harry remained human. Both professors stepped back in shock. Extraordinary, Dumbledore breathed. It seems the magic within you has somehow bonded with the energies of Mr. Tennyson's device, allowing you to channel specific aspects of his transformations. Is that dangerous? Ben asked, concerned. I cannot say for certain, Dumbledore admitted. This is unprecedented. But I believe proper training could help young Harry control these new abilities. He looked between them thoughtfully. I propose a solution. Come with us to Hogwarts, where Harry will be safe from both his relatives and any magical threats. There, we can study this phenomenon more carefully and begin Harry's magical education. Hogwarts. Harry's arm returned to normal as his concentration broke. The magic school. The very same, McGonagall said with a hint of pride. Though students don't typically begin until age 11, your circumstances are exceptional. Ben crossed his arms. And what about me? I need to track down an interdimensional criminal who came to this reality before me. Plus, I have my own universe to get back to eventually. Our resources at Hogwarts might help with both objectives, Dumbledore offered. The castle contains one of the most extensive magical libraries in Europe. If there's information about interdimensional travel or tracking methods for your quarry, it would be there. Harry looked at Ben pleadingly. Please. I don't want to go without you. Ben sighed, recognizing the logic of the proposal. A safe place for Harry, resources for his own mission, and experts who might understand the Omnitrix magic fusion better than he could alone. All right, he agreed. But I stay with Harry. And if I get a lead on Cryosplitter, I need to follow it. A reasonable arrangement, Dumbledore nodded. Now, shall we depart? I believe we've attracted enough attention in this Muggle park. As if to emphasize his point, a jogger came around a bend in the path, did a double take at the oddly dressed professors, and hurriedly ran in the opposite direction. How do we get to Hogwarts? Harry asked, excitement bleeding through his apprehension. Dumbledore smiled, pulling a teapot from within his robes. By Portkey, my boy. A magical form of transportation. Simply touch this object, and it will transport us directly to the castle grounds. Ben eyed the teapot skeptically. Magic teleportation via teapot. Why not? It's not even the weirdest thing that's happened in the last 24 hours. Harry laughed, a genuine, carefree sound that Ben suspected was all too rare for the boy. As they all reached out to touch the portkey, Harry's other hand found Ben's and gripped it tightly. Ready? Dumbledore asked. Ready, Harry and Ben replied in unison. 3, 2, 1, the world twisted around them in a blur of color and sensation, whisking them away from the park and toward a castle of magic, where both boys would discover just how profound their unexpected partnership would become. Hogwarts Castle loomed against the morning sky, its many towers and turrets silhouetted majestically as Ben and Harry stumbled onto the grounds, disoriented from their first portkey travel. Ben had experienced many forms of alien transportation, but magical teleportation had its own unique, and decidedly unpleasant, sensation. That was worse than being swallowed by a slamworm, Ben groaned, steadying himself. Harry wasn't faring much better, though his eyes were wide with wonder as he took in the enormous castle before them. It's amazing, he breathed. Welcome to Hogwarts, Dumbledore said, completely unfazed by the journey. McGonagall straightened her hat, looking only slightly ruffled. The students are away for summer holidays, she explained as they walked toward the main entrance. Only staff remain, which should afford us some privacy while we sort out this unusual situation. The great oak doors swung open of their own accord as they approached, revealing a massive entrance hall with a sweeping marble staircase. Portraits lining the walls moved and whispered as they passed, pointing excitedly at Harry. Suits of armor turned their helmets to follow their progress. This place is like a mashup of Forever Night Castle and Hex's Magic Library, Ben muttered, earning curious glances from the professors. They were led to a circular office accessed by a moving spiral staircase behind a gargoyle that jumped aside at Dumbledore's password, sugar quills. The room was filled with strange silver instruments that whirred and puffed smoke, shelves crammed with books, and yet more moving portraits, these of elderly men and women who seemed to be sleeping in their frames. Please, make yourselves comfortable, Dumbledore gestured to chairs before his desk. As they settled in, a magnificent red and gold bird about the size of a swan flew from a perch to land on the desk, studying Harry with intelligent eyes. Whoa, Ben breathed. What kind of alien is that? Not alien, but nearly as rare, Dumbledore smiled, stroking the bird's feathers. This is Fawkes, a phoenix. A magical bird of great power and loyalty. Fawkes trilled a few notes that seemed to fill the room with warmth and courage. Harry felt instantly calmer, while Ben watched in fascination. Now then, Dumbledore steepled his fingers. I believe we have several matters to discuss. The unusual magic created by the interaction between young Harry and your device, Mr. Tennyson. Harry's future living arrangements. And your interdimensional pursuits. Let's start with the Omnitrix magic thing, Ben suggested. That's the most immediate issue. Indeed. Dumbledore drew his wand and waved it in Harry's direction, murmuring incantations. Colored lights swirled around the boy, forming patterns that meant nothing to Ben but caused both professors to exchange significant looks. "Remarkable," McGonagall said. "His magical core has been fundamentally altered. It's still growing as a young wizard should, but the energy signature is unlike anything I've ever seen. It appears," Dumbledore said slowly, "that Harry's inherent magic has bonded with the energy from your Omnitrix, creating what we might call a hybridized magical core. His spellcasting will likely manifest in ways that reflect both traditional wizardry and the abilities of your alien forms." "Is that dangerous?" Harry asked nervously. "Not inherently," Dumbledore assured him. "But it will require careful training. The accidental magic all young wizards experience might manifest as unpredictable alien abilities in your case." Ben frowned. "Can it be reversed?" "Not that we necessarily want to," he added quickly, seeing Harry's alarmed expression. "But is it permanent?" Dumbledore studied the Omnitrix thoughtfully. "I suspect it is, at least until Harry's magical core fully matures around age 17. The connection might naturally dissolve then, or it might remain permanently integrated. Only time will tell." Harry looked at his hands. "So I'll be able to do normal wizard magic too? Not just alien stuff?" "With proper training, yes," McGonagall confirmed. "Though your spell effects may differ somewhat from standard results." "Which brings us to your education," Dumbledore continued. "Typically, Hogwarts students begin at age 11, but your circumstances are exceptional. I propose we begin your magical instruction immediately, with private tutoring until you reach the standard enrollment age." Harry's face lit up. "I can stay here. At Hogwarts?" "For now, yes," Dumbledore nodded. "The blood protection from your mother's sacrifice ideally requires you to call your aunt's house home for part of each year, but given the circumstances, we must find an alternative solution." "He's not going back there," Ben said firmly. "Not after what they did." "On that point, we are in complete agreement, Mr. Tennyson," McGonagall said, her lips pressed into a thin line. "I've already dispatched Professors Flitwick and Sprout to investigate the situation at Privet Drive and modify the Dursleys' memories regarding last night's events. The Muggle authorities will believe the fire was caused by faulty wiring." "And what about me?" Ben asked. "I appreciate the offer of research help, but I need to actively search for Cryosplitter before he causes trouble in this dimension." Dumbledore stroked his beard thoughtfully. "Perhaps we might reach a mutually beneficial arrangement. You wish to remain with Harry, and he clearly trusts you. Your unique abilities would also provide an additional layer of protection for the boy, who, I must tell you, remains a potential target for dark wizards." "Because of this Voldemort guy?" Ben clarified. Several of the portraits on the wall flinched at the name, but Dumbledore merely nodded. "Though Voldemort was defeated the night he attacked the Potters, many believe he is not truly gone. There are those who would harm Harry either in revenge or in the hopes of preventing their master's eventual return." Harry paled slightly, and Ben placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "So what's the arrangement?" Ben pressed. "You remain at Hogwarts as Harry's guardian and protector," Dumbledore proposed. "In exchange, our staff will assist your search using magical methods that might complement your technology. Additionally, you might occasionally assist us with matters that could benefit from your unique transformative abilities." Ben considered the offer. It wasn't ideal, he'd prefer to be actively hunting Cryosplitter, but Harry needed him. And he had to admit, magical resources might help his search in ways his usual methods couldn't. "All right," he agreed. "But the moment I get a solid lead on Cryosplitter, I need to follow it." Naturally, Dumbledore inclined his head. "Now, there is one more matter. Your unusual appearance in our dimension has attracted attention beyond these walls. The Ministry of Magic's Department of Mysteries has already expressed interest in both the interdimensional travel aspect and the Omnitrix magic fusion." Ben groaned. "Great. Government agents. Every dimension has them. I have temporarily dissuaded them with assurances that you are under Hogwarts protection," Dumbledore continued, but they will eventually insist on an interview at minimum. Cross that bridge when we come to it, Ben shrugged. For now, let's focus on helping Harry understand his new abilities. As if on cue, the Omnitrix beeped softly, its display lighting up with new information. Ben activated it, projecting a holographic readout that hovered above his wrist. The Omnitrix has completed its analysis of the magical energy, he explained, studying the display. It's categorized it as a new form of energy manipulation and integrated it into its database. Does that mean you can transform into a wizard? Harry asked excitedly. Ben laughed. I don't think so. But it might help me understand how your hybrid powers work. He scrolled through the data. According to this, the Omnitrix recognized 10 primary patterns in your magic that correlate to my original 10 aliens. That's probably why you can access those specific powers. My first 10, Ben clarified, seeing the professor's confusion. Heat Blast, Wild Mutt, Diamond Head, XLR-8, Grey Matter, 4 Arms, Stinkfly, Ripjaws, Upgrade, and Ghost Freak. Colorful nomenclature, McGonagall remarked dryly. Hey, I was 10 when I named most of them, Ben defended with a grin. Harry was practically bouncing in his seat. So I can learn to use all 10 of those powers. Through spells. Theoretically, yes, Dumbledore replied, examining the holographic data with fascination. Though I suggest we begin with the simplest and safest applications while you learn control. Grey Matter's intelligence enhancement would be a good starting point, Ben suggested. Or Diamond Head's defensive capabilities. Both are less likely to accidentally burn down the castle than Heat Blast. Fawkes trilled what sounded suspiciously like agreement, making Harry laugh. I believe Professor Flitwick would be most suitable for initial training, McGonagall said. His expertise in charms would provide a foundation for channeling these unique magical expressions. Dumbledore nodded. A wise suggestion, Minerva. And perhaps Madame Pomfrey should examine young Harry as well, to ensure his physical health is sound after his ordeal with the Dursleys. I feel fine, Harry insisted, though Ben noticed he unconsciously rubbed his cheek where the bruise from his uncle was still faintly visible. Humor us, kid, Ben said gently. Magic healing has got to be better than waiting for bruises to fade naturally. Harry reluctantly agreed. Excellent, Dumbledore rose from behind his desk. I shall make the necessary arrangements. In the meantime, I believe a tour of the castle, lunch, and proper accommodations are in order. He peered at Harry over his half-moon spectacles. Unless you have further questions. Harry hesitated, then asked in a small voice, could you tell me about my parents? What they were like? Something softened in the old wizard's face. James and Lily Potter were among the finest students, and later, the finest people, I ever knew. Both were exceptionally talented in magic, though in different ways. James had a natural affinity for transfiguration and was rather mischievous. Lily excelled in charms and potions, with a kind heart and fierce determination. Harry drank in this information like a man dying of thirst. Do you have pictures of them? I'm sure we can find some, McGonagall said gently. Hagrid, our gamekeeper, was particularly fond of your parents. He might have photographs. There will be time for all of that, Dumbledore assured him. You have years ahead to learn about your heritage, Harry. Today, let us focus on your immediate needs and this remarkable new chapter in your life. As they left the headmaster's office, Ben noticed Harry walking taller, his expression a mix of wonder and determination. Whatever had happened when the Omnitrix interfaced with Harry's magic, it had given the boy something beyond just alien powers, it had given him hope. And Ben was beginning to think that might be the most powerful magic of all. Chapter 2, Heroes in Training, Diamond Head. Harry's arm crystallized in a flash of green energy, just in time to deflect the sizzling blue beam headed straight for his chest. The energy blast ricocheted, blasting a small crater in the stone wall behind him. Nice block. Ben called from across the room. But you're still reacting too slow. In a real fight, you'd be toast by now. Harry wiped sweat from his forehead with his still human hand. Maybe if you weren't shooting actual energy beams at me. Bad guys don't shoot tickle beams, Ben grinned, the Omnitrix on his wrist still glowing from his partial transformation into Chromastone's arm. Again. It had been 6 months since they'd arrived at Hogwarts, and Dumbledore had converted a forgotten chamber in the castle's east wing into a training room for them. Reinforced walls, cushioning charms on the floor, and enough space to practice without destroying priceless magical artifacts made it perfect for Harry's increasingly powerful alien spells. Harry took a deep breath and centered himself the way Professor Flitwick had taught him. The tiny charms professor had been surprisingly helpful in teaching Harry to channel his unique magic, even if the results often left him squeaking in surprise and occasionally diving for cover. Ready, Harry nodded. Ben didn't give any warning this time. His transformed arm came up lightning fast, firing 3 rapid energy bolts in quick succession, one high, one mid, one low. 4 arms. Harry shouted, magic surging through him. His body bulked up, skin taking on a reddish tint as 2 extra arms sprouted from his torso. With his upper right, he blocked the high shot. The lower right caught the middle one. But the low shot. Ow! Harry yelped as the energy beam caught him in the shin. His concentration broke, and his 4 arms transformation faded. That hurt. Barely singed you, Ben countered, though he did look slightly guilty as his arm returned to normal. You're getting better though. 6 months ago, all 3 would have hit you. Harry rubbed his leg, grumbling. 6 months ago I couldn't even say 4 arms without accidentally punching a hole in the wall. Progress. Ben grinned, walking over to toss Harry a towel from the bench. Flitwick will be impressed. Harry caught the towel and wiped his face. At nearly 7 years old now, he'd filled out considerably from the scrawny, malnourished boy Ben had rescued from the Dursleys. Regular meals in the Hogwarts kitchens, where the house elves delighted in stuffing him with second and third helpings, a proper bed in their quarters, and daily training had transformed him. He was still small for his age, but the haunted look in his eyes had been replaced by a bright spark of confidence. You think we can try upgrade today? Harry asked hopefully. I've been practicing the visualization like you said. Ben hesitated. Upgrade's tricky. Merging with technology isn't something wizards typically do. Even Dumbledore said it might be unpredictable. But I'm not just a wizard, Harry pointed out. I'm an Omni-Wizard. That's what Hagrid calls me, anyway. Ben laughed. Omni-Wizard, huh? I like it. He glanced at his watch, a regular watch, not the Omnitrix. We've got 30 minutes before McGonagall expects us for your transfiguration lesson. One quick upgrade attempt, but no merging with anything complex. Start with something simple. Harry's face lit up. Yes. He looked around the training room, spotting an old lantern they used for evening sessions. That'll work. Ben nodded approval. Remember, upgrade doesn't just control technology, he becomes one with it, enhances it. Focus on that connection. Harry approached the lantern, hovering his hands over it. He closed his eyes, visualizing the liquid metal form of upgrade, the way circuits and wires would feel beneath his consciousness. When he felt ready, his eyes snapped open. Upgrade. Green energy coursed down his arms, transforming them into the black, circuit-lined appendages characteristic of upgrade. The transformation continued up to his shoulders before stopping, leaving his head and torso human. His transformed arms made contact with the lantern, and immediately, the metal began to change, green circuit patterns spreading across its surface as it grew larger, more elaborate. I'm doing it. Harry exclaimed, watching as the simple lantern morphed into something resembling a miniature lighthouse, complete with a rotating beam of light. That's incredible, Ben said, genuinely impressed. You're not just changing its shape, you're enhancing its function. Harry's face showed intense concentration. It feels weird. Like I can sense every part of it, make it do whatever I want. The lighthouse morphed again, becoming a complex projector that cast moving images on the wall, a crude but recognizable Hogwarts castle, with tiny figures flying on broomsticks. Okay, that's enough, Ben said after a minute, seeing the strain on Harry's face. Disengage before you overdo it. Harry nodded, carefully pulling his consciousness back from the lantern. His arms returned to normal, and he staggered slightly as the connection broke. Ben caught him before he could fall. Whoa there. You all right? Just dizzy, Harry assured him, though his face was pale. That takes a lot more out of me than the other transformations. Mental energy versus physical, Ben explained, helping him to the bench. Upgrade requires concentration and technical understanding. You're basically running a computer program with your brain. A really wizard computer program, Harry grinned weakly. Can't wait to show Flitwick. Maybe let's not give him a heart attack today, Ben suggested. Remember when you first did Ghost Freak and floated through his desk? Harry laughed. I thought his eyebrows would never come down from his hairline. Their banter was interrupted by a soft knock at the training room door. It opened to reveal Professor McGonagall, looking as prim and proper as ever, though over the months they detected a growing softness in her manner toward Harry. I see you've been practicing, she observed, noting Harry's disheveled appearance and the still-glowing enhanced lantern. Harry just successfully executed an upgrade transformation, Ben reported proudly. Partial bodily transformation with full technological enhancement capabilities. McGonagall's eyebrows raised slightly, her equivalent of enthusiastic applause. Most impressive, Mr. Potter. You're advancing more quickly than anticipated. Harry beamed at the praise. However, she continued, I must inform you that today's transfiguration lesson will need to be postponed. The headmaster requests your presence in his office immediately. Ben and Harry exchanged concerned glances. Immediate summons to Dumbledore's office usually meant one of two things, news about Cryosplitter's whereabouts, or trouble with the Ministry of Magic, which continued to express concerns about Harry's unusual magical development. Did he say what it's about? Ben asked, already gathering their training gear. Only that it concerns your living arrangements, McGonagall replied cryptically. And that you should bring cloaks. You may be leaving the castle grounds. That got their attention. In the 6 months since arriving at Hogwarts, they'd rarely ventured beyond the immediate castle grounds. Occasional visits to Hagrid's hut or supervised walks around the lake were the extent of their outings. Dumbledore had insisted on caution, both to protect Harry from lingering dark wizards and to keep Ben's alien forms from drawing unwanted attention. Leaving the grounds? Harry repeated excitedly. Like, to a wizarding village? Hogsmeade? The headmaster will explain everything, McGonagall said, though a tiny smile played at the corner of her mouth. Now, if you'll clean up here, I'll escort you to his office. 10 minutes later, they stood before the gargoyle guarding Dumbledore's office. Acid pops, McGonagall stated clearly, and the gargoyle leapt aside, revealing the spiral staircase. When they entered the circular office, they found Dumbledore feeding treats to Fawkes, who trilled a greeting at their arrival. Over the past months, Harry had developed a special bond with the Phoenix, who often appeared during his more difficult training sessions, his song providing courage when Harry's confidence faltered. Ah, right on time, Dumbledore smiled, his eyes twinkling behind half-moon spectacles. Thank you, Minerva. McGonagall nodded and departed, leaving the three of them alone. I understand congratulations are in order, Harry, Dumbledore said, seating himself behind his desk. Professor Flitwick reports that your control over your unique magic has improved dramatically. Harry grinned. I just managed upgrade for the first time. Splendid. You continue to surprise us all. Dumbledore folded his hands. Which leads me to the matter at hand. After much consideration, I believe it is time for us to establish more permanent arrangements for your care and education. Ben leaned forward. Has something changed? Is Harry in danger? Not immediate danger, no, Dumbledore assured them. But our current situation remains somewhat improvised. Harry needs a proper magical guardian, a more structured educational plan, and eventually, a home outside of Hogwarts for holiday periods. Harry's face fell. You're sending me away. Quite the opposite, my boy, Dumbledore smiled. I wish to formalize your placement in our world. To that end, I've arranged for us to visit Gringotts' Wizarding Bank in Diagon Alley today. There are matters of your inheritance to discuss, and magical guardianship papers to file. My inheritance? Harry echoed, surprised. You mean, my parents left me something? The Potters were an old and respected wizarding family, Dumbledore explained gently. Yes, they left you quite a substantial inheritance, which has been held in trust until you come of age. While you cannot access the full extent of it until you turn 17, we can establish a maintenance vault for your educational and living expenses. Ben had been quiet, processing this information. And the guardianship papers? Who's being named as Harry's guardian? Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. That, Mr. Tennyson, is something I hope to discuss with both of you. Legally speaking, Harry requires a magical guardian from our world. However, your unique bond with Harry and your demonstrated commitment to his welfare suggest an unconventional arrangement might be best. Harry looked between them, confusion evident. I'm proposing a dual guardianship, Dumbledore clarified. A formal magical guardian from the wizarding world, I would suggest Professor McGonagall, who has grown quite fond of Harry, and you, Mr. Tennyson, as his primary caregiver and protector. Ben blinked in surprise. Me? But I'm only 16. And technically, I don't even exist in this dimension. A technicality we can address through magical means, Dumbledore waved dismissively. As for your age, your maturity and capabilities far exceed many adult wizards I know. More importantly, Harry trusts you implicitly, and your unique abilities provide protection no magical guardian could offer. Harry's face had lit up. So Ben would be like, my brother. Officially? More like an older brother or young guardian, yes, Dumbledore nodded. Assuming Mr. Tennyson is willing to accept such responsibility. All eyes turned to Ben, who looked momentarily overwhelmed. When he'd followed Cryosplitter through that dimensional portal, becoming the guardian of a young wizard with alien powers was the last thing he'd expected. And yet. He looked at Harry, the kid who'd faced his abusive relatives with courage, who'd adapted to the revelation of magic and alien powers with remarkable resilience, who'd worked tirelessly to control his unique abilities. The kid who now looked at him with hope and trust that Ben had done nothing to earn except show him basic human decency. I'd be honored, Ben said finally, his voice slightly rough. But what about my search for Cryosplitter? I can't abandon that responsibility either. Which brings me to the second purpose of our trip to Diagon Alley, Dumbledore said. I believe I've found a lead on your interdimensional fugitive. Both Ben and Harry sat up straighter. Gringotts has detected unusual energy fluctuations in their deepest vaults, Dumbledore explained. Energy that matches the signature your Omnitrix recorded from Cryosplitter. The goblins are concerned, to put it mildly. They've requested magical assistance, and I've suggested you might be uniquely qualified to help, Mr. Tennyson. So we get to go to a magical bank and maybe catch Cryosplitter. Harry summarized excitedly. When do we leave? Dumbledore chuckled. After we review a few security precautions. Diagon Alley is a public wizarding space, and while few would recognize Harry at his age, we should still take certain measures. He rose and crossed to a cabinet, withdrawing 2 traveling cloaks. One was a deep midnight blue with subtle stars that seemed to actually twinkle, the other was emerald green with silver trim. These cloaks have been enchanted with notice-me-not charms, Dumbledore explained, handing the blue one to Ben and the green to Harry. Not enough to make you invisible, but enough to discourage casual attention. Additionally, he presented Harry with a small vial of clear potion. This will temporarily change your hair color and obscure your scar for the duration of our visit. Harry examined the potion curiously. Will it hurt? Not at all. Merely a cosmetic change that will wear off after a few hours. Ben adjusted his cloak, which fit perfectly. What about the Omnitrix? If Cryosplitter is there, I'll need to go hero. I've taken the liberty of informing the goblins about your unique abilities, Dumbledore assured him. They are a secretive people but respect power and the pursuit of thieves. They will provide privacy should transformation become necessary. With preparations complete, Dumbledore guided them to his fireplace, explaining they would travel by flow powder, a magical transportation method using connected fireplaces. Simply throw the powder into the flames, step in, and clearly state Diagon Alley, Dumbledore instructed, demonstrating the technique. Keep your elbows tucked in, and try not to inhale too much ash. Wait, we're stepping into fire? Ben asked skeptically. Harry, who had been coached on wizard transportation methods during his magical theory lessons, grinned at Ben's discomfort. What's wrong? The guy who turns into a living flame is scared of a little fire. Very funny, Ben grumbled. Just because I can turn into heat blast doesn't mean I enjoy being barbecued as a human. After Dumbledore disappeared in a whoosh of green flame, Harry went next, his excited Diagon Alley, slightly muffled by the roaring fire. Ben took a deep breath, threw in the powder, and followed, wondering what other magical surprises the day would bring. Diagon Alley was everything Harry had imagined from the wizarding books he'd devoured over the past months, and more. Despite the notice-me-not cloaks, he couldn't help gawking at the crooked buildings, the strangely dressed witches and wizards, and the bewildering array of magical goods displayed in shop windows. That broom can go 100 miles per hour, he whispered excitedly to Ben, pointing at a sleek racing broom in the window of quality Quidditch supplies. And look, self-stirring cauldrons. And is that an actual dragon liver? Ben, equally fascinated but trying to maintain vigilance, kept a hand near the Omnitrix while scanning the crowded alley for any sign of his quarry. Stay close, Harry. Remember why we're here. Indeed, Dumbledore murmured, guiding them toward an imposing white marble building that towered over the other shops. Gringotts Wizarding Bank, run by goblins since 1474. I must caution you both, goblins have their own customs and can be easily offended. Follow my lead, speak only when addressed directly, and whatever you do, don't stare at their ears. The warning about not staring, of course, immediately made both boys desperately curious about goblin ears. As they climbed the white steps toward burnished bronze doors, they got their first glimpse of a goblin, short, swarthy-faced, with a pointed beard and, indeed, very long pointed ears. Inside, they passed through a second set of doors with an engraved warning about thieves facing dire consequences. The main hall beyond was vast, with a long counter where at least 100 goblins sat on high stools, weighing coins, examining precious stones, and scrutinizing documents. Dumbledore approached a free goblin, bowing slightly. May your gold always flow and your enemies fall beneath your blade. We seek an audience with Director Ragnarok regarding the Potter accounts and the energy disturbance. The goblin's sharp eyes narrowed, first at Dumbledore, then assessing Ben and Harry with surprising intensity. The director is expecting you, headmaster. He snapped his fingers, and a younger goblin appeared. Griphook will escort you to the conference chamber. As they followed Griphook through marble hallways, Harry whispered to Ben, they don't seem that scary. Never judge a species by appearance, Ben whispered back. Some of the most dangerous aliens I know look like teddy bears. The conference chamber was a circular room with a large stone table and uncomfortable-looking chairs. Director Ragnarok, distinguished by his more elaborate uniform and particularly fierce expression, was waiting for them. Headmaster Dumbledore, he acknowledged with minimal courtesy before his gaze locked onto Ben. And you must be the shapeshifter with the wrist device. Ben straightened. Ben Tennyson, sir. I understand you've detected energy signatures that might be related to the criminal I'm tracking. Ragnarok's sharp teeth showed in what might have been a smile or a grimace. Direct. Good. I despise wasteful pleasantries. He unrolled a parchment on the table. 3 days ago, our wards detected an energy surge unlike any magical signature known to goblin kind. It emanated from the high-security section, Vault 713 specifically. Ben activated the Omnitrix, projecting a holographic signature. Does it match this pattern? The goblins in the room collectively hissed at the technology, but Ragnarok leaned forward, studying the projection. Similar. Not identical. The frequency oscillation is inverted. That could mean he's modified his dimensional device, Ben mused. Or he's trying to mask his energy signature. What was in Vault 713? Harry asked, then immediately regretted speaking when all goblin eyes turned to him. Surprisingly, Ragnarok answered. That information is confidential, young wizard. Suffice to say, it contained an item of significant magical importance, which has now been moved to an even more secure location as a precaution. My interdimensional tracker hasn't picked up Cryosplitter's signature directly, Ben said, pulling out Kevin's device from his pocket. But if he's been here recently, it might be able to trace his path. We can discuss the intrusion detection after we've completed the primary business, Ragnarok stated, changing subjects abruptly. The Potter inheritance and guardianship matter. For the next hour, they reviewed legal documents, magical contracts, and financial statements that made Harry's head spin. He learned that his family vault contained not just gold but family heirlooms, magical artifacts, and property deeds. As Dumbledore had explained, he couldn't access most of it until he was of age, but a trust vault was established for his immediate needs. And now to the matter of guardianship, Ragnarok said finally. Most irregular, this arrangement. A transdimensional being and a Hogwarts professor as co-guardians. He eyed Ben critically. Our magic cannot fully bind someone not of this dimension. I understand, Ben said seriously. But I give my word, in any dimension, to protect Harry and act in his best interests. Ragnarok studied him for a long moment, then nodded sharply. Your word will be magically recorded, even if not fully binding. The professor's magical oath will complement it legally. He pushed a document forward. Blood signatures required. Before they could ask what that meant, the goblin produced an ornate golden quill. A blood quill. It uses the signer's blood as ink. Perfectly legal for binding magical contracts, he added, seeing Ben's alarmed expression. After signatures were complete, and healing salve applied to their hands, Ragnarok stamped the document with the Gringotts seal. It is done. Minerva McGonagall is now the magical guardian of Harry James Potter, with Benjamin Kirby Tennyson recognized as primary caregiver and protector. Ben winced at the use of his full name, while Harry tried unsuccessfully to suppress a giggle. Kirby, he whispered. Not another word, Ben muttered back. With the formalities concluded, Ragnarok's demeanor shifted to business once more. Now, regarding the energy disturbance. Our wards prevent direct scrying of the vaults, but we can authorize a limited investigation. The shapeshifter may accompany our cursebreakers to examine the residual energy. What about Harry? Ben asked. I don't want to leave him unprotected. I shall remain with Harry while we visit his trust vault, Dumbledore offered. The Gringotts carts only accommodate 2 humans comfortably in any case. Ben hesitated, looking at Harry. You okay with that? Harry nodded, though he seemed slightly disappointed to miss the investigation. I'll be fine with Professor Dumbledore. Just. He lowered his voice, if you find Cryosplitter, don't fight him alone, okay? Remember what happened last time. Got it, partner, Ben assured him with a fist bump. Keep the Omnitrix communicator I gave you handy. Any sign of trouble, I'll be there in a flash. Literally, if I go XLR8. With that, they separated, Harry and Dumbledore heading to the trust vault, while Ben followed a team of goblin cursebreakers toward the high-security section. As they departed, none noticed the cloaked figure who had been watching from the shadows of the lobby, whose eyes narrowed with malicious interest at the sight of the young boy with the temporarily disguised scar. The depths of Gringotts were like something from an alien planet, Ben decided as the cart hurtled at breakneck speed along twisting rails that seemed to defy physics. Vast caverns opened beneath them, mysterious stalactites glittered with embedded gemstones, and at one point, he could have sworn he saw a burst of fire from a dragon in the distance. "This place makes the null void look organized," he muttered, gripping the cart's edge as they took a particularly sharp turn. The lead cursebreaker, a human wizard named Bill Weasley with long red hair tied in a ponytail, grinned at Ben's discomfort. "First time in the Gringotts tunnels. They're designed to confuse and disorient potential thieves. The goblins are the only ones who know all the passages." "I could navigate it," Ben countered. "Wildmutt senses or Big Chill's flight would make this maze manageable." Bill looked intrigued. "Those are some of your transformations. Dumbledore mentioned you had quite the collection." 10,000 and counting, Ben confirmed. "Though honestly, I usually stick to about 20 favorites." The goblin driving their cart made a noise that might have been skepticism or indigestion, and the conversation ended as they plunged deeper into the earth. Finally, they arrived at a stone platform before an imposing metal door marked with the number 713. The door had no keyhole, just a smooth surface etched with strange symbols. "This is where we detected the anomalous energy," the goblin announced, running a long finger over the door. "No breach occurred, but something attempted to scan through our wards." Ben pulled out Kevin's tracker, which immediately began beeping rapidly. "Definitely Cryosplitter's energy signature. But it's faint, maybe 3 days old, like you said." He examined the door. He was searching for something specific in this vault. Bill Weasley waved his wand in complex patterns, muttering incantations. "These are extremely powerful wards. Whatever was in here must have been valuable. Or dangerous," Ben added grimly. "Cryosplitter doesn't go after random loot. He's methodical. If he targeted this vault, it contains something with significant power." The goblin's expression darkened. "The contents have been relocated by order of the vault's owner. That is all you need to know." Ben activated the Omnitrix, scrolling through his aliens. "I might be able to get more information with the right transformation. Gray matter could analyze the energy signature more precisely, or maybe." He paused, a new idea forming. "Actually, let me try something else." He selected an alien and slammed down the dial. In a flash of green light, Ben transformed into a bizarre creature made of green circuitry with a floating, camera-like head. "Upgrade," the alien announced. "If Cryosplitter left any technological trace, I can interface with it." The goblin cursebreakers hissed and raised their weapons, but Bill held up a hand. "It's all right. This is one of his forms." Upgrade approached the vault door. "I'm not going to break in. I just want to see if he left any technological fingerprints on the security system." His amorphous body flattened against the door's surface, green circuitry pattern spreading across the metal as he interfaced with the goblin security measures. "Fascinating," Upgrade murmured. "Your security has both magical and mechanical components. Very sophisticated." His head swiveled to address the goblin. "There's a trace energy pattern here, almost like a mapping scan." He was creating a three-dimensional model of the vault's interior without actually breaching it. "Impossible," the goblin snarled. "Our wards prevent all forms of magical scrying." "This wasn't magical," Upgrade countered. "It was dimensional phasing technology. He essentially slipped a probe between dimensions, bypassing your wards entirely because it never fully materialized in this reality." Bill whistled low. "That's beyond any magic I've encountered." Upgrade detached from the door, his body reforming. "Whatever was in there, he now has a complete schematic of it. That's how he operates, thorough reconnaissance before making his move." The Omnitrix symbol on Upgrade's chest began beeping, and moments later, Ben stood in the alien's place. "I need to know what was in that vault," he said firmly. "If Cryosplitter is after it, it could be crucial to his plans for this dimension." The goblin's face remained impassive. "That information is restricted. The item belongs to Nicholas Flamel and Albus Dumbledore. Any inquiries must go through them. Ben filed away the name Nicholas Flamel for later investigation. Fine. But I need one more piece of information. Did your wards detect any similar energy signatures elsewhere in Gringotts or Diagon Alley? At this, Bill Weasley spoke up. Actually, there was a minor disturbance reported near Nocturne Alley yesterday, not the same signature, but unusual enough that the Ministry's Magical Anomalies Department took notice. Nocturne Alley. Ben repeated. Adjacent to Diagon Alley, Bill explained. Specializes in, less reputable magical goods. Dark artifacts, questionable potions, that sort of thing. Ben's eyes narrowed. Sounds like exactly the kind of place Cryosplitter would look for components or information. He checked his communicator. I should get back to Harry and Dumbledore. If Cryosplitter is still in the area, Harry could be at risk. As they returned to the cart, Ben couldn't shake the feeling that they were running out of time. Cryosplitter was planning something big, and whatever had been in Vault 713 was part of it. He just hoped they could figure out what before it was too late. Meanwhile, Harry was having the time of his life exploring his trust vault. Though it contained only a small portion of the Potter family wealth, as the Goblin Griphook had explained, to Harry it looked like a dragon's hoard from the storybooks, piles of gold galleons, silver sickles, and bronze nuts that glittered in the lamplight. "This is all mine?" he asked in wonder, picking up a handful of coins and letting them cascade through his fingers. "A trust fund established by your parents," Dumbledore confirmed. "Replenished annually from the main Potter vault until you come of age." Harry filled the small pouch Griphook had provided, still marveling at the idea of having money of his own. All his life with the Dursleys, he'd had nothing, wearing Dudley's cast-offs, never receiving birthday presents, being told repeatedly how much of a burden he was. Now he had not only magic and alien powers but an actual inheritance. As they rode the cart back to the surface, Harry's mind was racing with possibilities. "Professor, now that the guardianship is official, does that mean Ben and I can have our own place? Outside Hogwarts?" Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. "I've been giving that some thought. While Hogwarts remains the safest location for your magical education, having a secondary residence for holidays might be beneficial. There's a small cottage on the outskirts of Hogsmeade that once belonged to the Hogwarts groundskeeper before Hagrid took the position. With some renovation, it could serve your needs admirably." Harry beamed at the idea. "A real home with Ben. Could we see it today? After we meet back up with Ben?" "I believe that could be arranged," Dumbledore nodded. "Assuming Mr. Tennyson's investigation doesn't require immediate action." When they returned to the main hall of Gringotts, Ben wasn't yet back from the vaults. Dumbledore suggested they wait in the lobby, where Harry found himself studying the other Wizarding Bank patrons with fascination. There were witches in pointed hats carrying exotic shopping bags, wizards in business robes consulting pocket watches that had too many hands, and even what appeared to be a hag exchanging foreign currency at a special counter. A small commotion at one of the teller desks caught Harry's attention. A tall, elegantly dressed wizard with long white blonde hair was speaking in cold, clipped tones to a goblin. "Access to the Lestrange vault is my right as family executor during her indisposition," the wizard was saying. "The ministry authorization is quite clear." Something about the man's demeanor made Harry uneasy. He tugged at Dumbledore's sleeve. "Who's that?" Dumbledore glanced over, his expression carefully neutral. "Lucius Malfoy. A man of considerable wealth and influence in the wizarding world." He guided Harry subtly away from the man's line of sight. "Let us wait nearer the doors for Mr. Tennyson." But as they moved across the lobby, fate intervened in the form of a house elf carrying a stack of documents that towered above his head. The creature collided with Harry, sending papers flying and knocking off Harry's hood in the process. "Pipsy is sorry, sir," the house elf squeaked in distress, frantically gathering papers. Pipsy did not see young Sir. "It's okay," Harry assured him, kneeling to help collect the scattered documents. As he did so, the potion that had been disguising his appearance began to wear off, its effectiveness shortened by the goblin magic permeating the bank. His hair started returning to its natural black, and the lightning bolt scar on his forehead, momentarily visible as his bangs fell aside, caught the light. Most of the bank's patrons paid no attention to the minor commotion, but Lucius Malfoy, turning from his completed business, happened to glance directly at Harry as the disguise faded. His pale eyes widened with recognition, then narrowed with calculating interest. Dumbledore, noticing the change, moved swiftly to Harry's side, replacing his hood. "Come along, Harry. I believe I see Mr. Tennyson returning." Indeed, Ben was emerging from the tunnels with Bill Weasley, engaged in animated conversation. Seeing Harry and Dumbledore, he quickened his pace to join them. "We need to talk," Ben said in a low voice. "Cryosplitter was definitely here, and he's after something specific." Dumbledore nodded. "Outside, I think. These walls have too many ears, some of them quite pointed." As they moved toward the exit, Harry felt a prickling sensation on the back of his neck, the feeling of being watched. Glancing back, he caught Lucius Malfoy staring at their group with unsettling intensity. The man made a slight gesture with his walking stick, and Harry noticed another cloaked figure near the entrance shift position in response. "Ben," Harry whispered urgently, "I think someone recognized me." Ben followed Harry's gaze, immediately picking up on the suspicious behavior. "Dumbledore," he muttered, "we've got company. 2 o'clock, by the currency exchange." Dumbledore's demeanor remained outwardly calm, but his pace increased slightly. "Bill, would you be so kind as to create a small diversion? Nothing dramatic, just enough to cover our exit." Bill winked. "Leave it to me. Fred and George aren't the only Weasleys with a talent for mischief." As they reached the bronze doors, Bill casually flicked his wand toward a stack of ledgers on a nearby counter. The books launched into the air, pages flapping like birds, creating instant chaos as goblins scrambled to restore order. In the confusion, Dumbledore ushered Ben and Harry outside and quickly guided them into a narrow side alley. "That was Lucius Malfoy watching us, wasn't it?" Harry asked once they were safely away from the bank. Dumbledore's expression was grave. "Indeed. A concerning development. Mr. Malfoy was a prominent supporter of Voldemort during the Wizarding War, though he claimed to have been under magical control and was subsequently cleared." "You don't believe that," Ben observed. "Let us say I have reservations about his reformation," Dumbledore replied diplomatically. "If he recognized Harry, it would be prudent to leave Diagon Alley promptly. Our cottage viewing may need to wait for another day." Harry's disappointment must have shown on his face, because Ben quickly interjected, "Hold on. We can't just run every time there's a potential threat. Harry needs to learn to handle these situations, that's what we've been training for." "I appreciate your confidence, Mr. Tennyson, but Lucius Malfoy is not to be underestimated," Dumbledore cautioned. Ben crossed his arms. "Neither are we. I've got the Omnitrix, Harry has his alien spells, and you're supposedly the most powerful wizard alive. I'd say we're equipped to handle one guy with a walking stick and whatever goons he's got." Harry straightened, emboldened by Ben's confidence. "I want to see the cottage." "Please, Professor." Dumbledore studied them both for a long moment, then sighed. "Very well. But we shall take precautions. I know a less public route to Hogsmeade via Knockturn Alley and a specialized flow connection." "Knockturn Alley?" Ben perked up. "That's actually perfect. The Cursebreaker mentioned unusual energy readings there yesterday, could be Cryosplitter. 2 objectives in one journey," Dumbledore mused. "Efficient, if somewhat riskier." "Very well, but stay close, and Harry," he fixed the boy with a serious look, "should trouble arise, you are to follow instructions immediately. No heroics." "Yes, sir," Harry nodded, though he exchanged a quick glance with Ben that suggested no heroics was a relative concept for a boy with alien magic. They moved deeper into the narrow side streets that branched off from Diagon Alley's main thoroughfare. The shops grew progressively shabbier, the merchandise displayed in grimy windows increasingly dubious. Harry instinctively moved closer to Ben as they passed a store featuring shrunken heads and another displaying poisonous candles. "Charming neighborhood," Ben muttered, keeping a protective hand on Harry's shoulder. "Nocturne Alley caters to a specific clientele," Dumbledore explained in hushed tones. "While not everything sold here is strictly dark magic, much skirts the boundaries of legality." They passed a shop called Borgin and Burke's, its windows displaying cursed jewelry and what appeared to be human bones. Ben's tracker suddenly beeped, drawing their attention. "Energy signature," Ben whispered, checking the device. "Faint, but definitely Cryosplitter's tech. Within 50 meters." Dumbledore subtly drew his wand. "Where precisely?" Before Ben could pinpoint the location, a commotion erupted ahead, shouting, followed by the sound of breaking glass and a blinding flash of blue light. Pedestrians scattered, some disapparating with sharp cracks that echoed between the narrow buildings. "That's him." Ben recognized the familiar energy discharge. "Cryosplitter's here." A crystalline figure burst from a shop further down the alley, clutching something that emitted pulsing green light. Behind him, a wizard in dark robes lay sprawled on the ground, frost covering his body. "Stay with Harry," Ben shouted to Dumbledore, already activating the Omnitrix. In a flash of green light, he transformed into a red, four-armed alien with massive muscles. "For arms," he bellowed, charging down the alley. Cryosplitter turned, his faceted eyes widening at the sight of his interdimensional pursuer. Tennyson. Always interfering. He raised his modified weapon, firing ice blasts that four arms dodged by leaping from wall to wall of the narrow alley. Dumbledore pulled Harry into a recessed doorway, but Harry wasn't about to stand idly by. "I can help," he insisted, watching as four arms engaged the crystalline alien in close combat. "Harry, no," Dumbledore began, but Harry had already focused his magic. "Heat blast," he shouted, his arms transforming into the magma-like limbs of Ben's fire alien. Remembering his training, he concentrated on controlling the output, firing precise heat blasts at Cryosplitter's feet to melt the ice path he was using to maneuver. Cryosplitter stumbled as his ice melted beneath him, giving four arms the opening to land a powerful four-fisted combo that sent the alien crashing into a display of cursed artifacts. "The device!" Dumbledore called out, pointing to the glowing object Cryosplitter had dropped. "Secure it." Four arms lunged for the device, but Cryosplitter recovered faster than expected, firing an ice beam that encased four arms' lower body in solid frost. As the alien villain scrambled for his fallen technology, Harry reacted instinctively. XLR-8. Green energy surged through his legs, and in a blur of speed, Harry darted forward, snatched the device, and zoomed back to Dumbledore's side before Cryosplitter could react. "Impossible!" Cryosplitter snarled, seeing the young boy now holding his prize. "What manner of hybrid are you?" Four arms shattered his ice prison with a flex of his massive muscles. "He's my partner, Ice Cube. And you're finished." But Cryosplitter wasn't done. With a snarl, he slammed his fist into his chest where a device similar to the Omnitrix was embedded, and his crystalline body began to glow with intensifying energy. "The dimensional phase shift is already in progress, Tennyson," he shouted. "That component is just one piece of the puzzle. You've won nothing." Four arms charged again, but Cryosplitter's body suddenly pulsed with brilliant light, and he began to fade from view, phasing between dimensions. "No." Four arms lunged, trying to grab the villain before he disappeared completely. His hands passed through Cryosplitter's now translucent form, grasping only air as the alien vanished with a final, mocking laugh. The Omnitrix timed out, leaving Ben standing in the middle of the destroyed alley, breathing heavily in frustration. "Damn it! He got away again." Harry approached cautiously, still holding the dropped device. "But we got this. Whatever it is." Dumbledore joined them, examining the object in Harry's hands, a crystalline sphere with pulsing green energy at its core. Most interesting. Not magical in nature, yet clearly powerful. Ben took the sphere, studying it closely. It's a dimensional anchor point. Cryosplitter's building something, some kind of network between dimensions. This would be used to stabilize a larger portal. Is that bad? Harry asked. Very, Ben confirmed grimly. Uncontrolled dimensional portals can tear reality apart. If he's setting up multiple anchor points. Their discussion was interrupted by the appearance of several wizards in official-looking robes, wands drawn. Ministry of Magic. Remain where you are. Dumbledore stepped forward smoothly. Ah, Auror Shacklebolt. Your timing is impeccable, if somewhat delayed. A tall black wizard with a gold earring lowered his wand slightly. Professor Dumbledore. We received reports of an attack by an unknown magical creature. Multiple violations of the Statute of Secrecy. A minor interdimensional incursion, now resolved, Dumbledore explained calmly. My associates and I were fortunately on hand to manage the situation. The Auror's gaze shifted to Ben and Harry, lingering on the strange device and Harry's arms, which still showed traces of Heatblast's transformation. Your associates. Before Dumbledore could respond, a cold voice cut through the tension. Indeed. Most interesting associates you keep these days, Dumbledore. Lucius Malfoy stepped into view, his elegant robes somehow immaculate despite the chaos of the alley. Several hooded figures flanked him, their wands partially concealed but ready. Mr. Malfoy, Dumbledore acknowledged coolly. This is ministry business. Your presence is unnecessary. On the contrary, Malfoy's thin lips curled into a smile that didn't reach his eyes. As a concerned citizen and school governor, I believe the presence of unregistered magical beings in Diagon Alley is very much my concern. His gaze fixed on Harry. Especially when one appears to be Harry Potter, who should, by all accounts, be safely with his Muggle relatives. Harry felt a chill at the man's tone. The way he said Harry Potter reminded him uncomfortably of how Uncle Vernon would say, boy, or freak. Ben stepped protectively in front of Harry. Back off. Harry's with us now, legally and officially. Malfoy's eyebrows rose slightly. Is that so? And you would be? Ben Tennyson, Harry's guardian, Ben stated firmly. And we were just leaving. Were you indeed? Malfoy twirled his wand casually. After causing considerable damage to a historical wizarding district? I think not. He turned to the Auror. Shacklebolt, surely the ministry protocols require detaining those responsible for such destruction for questioning? The Auror looked uncomfortable but nodded reluctantly. Standard procedure would, this was not standard circumstances, Dumbledore interrupted. The creature responsible has fled, and I vouch personally for Mr. Tennyson and young Harry. While the adults argued, Harry noticed one of Malfoy's hooded companions shifting position, slowly circling to flank them. The movement was subtle, but Harry's training with Ben had sharpened his awareness of combat positioning. Ben, he whispered, tugging on his guardian's sleeve. 3 o'clock. Ben followed Harry's gaze, instantly picking up on the threat. Without drawing attention, he positioned himself to block any potential attack, hand hovering near the Omnitrix. The tension was building when another voice joined the confrontation, gruff, female, and authoritative. That's quite enough, Lucius. Your concern for ministry procedures is touching, but unnecessary. A witch with a monocle and severe expression pushed through the gathering crowd, flanked by 2 more Aurors. Madam Bones, head of magical law enforcement, she introduced herself to Ben. Albus informed my office about your unique situation months ago, Mr. Tennyson. Your credentials and guardianship of Mr. Potter are already on file. Malfoy's face tightened with barely suppressed anger. Amelia, you cannot possibly condone. What I condone, Lucius, is not your concern, Madam Bones cut him off crisply. This area is now under DMLE jurisdiction. Your presence is neither required nor welcome. For a moment, Malfoy looked ready to argue, but something in the witch's steady gaze made him reconsider. "Very well," he said silkily. "But the governors will need to review the wisdom of Dumbledore's arrangements regarding the boy who lived." He gave Harry one last calculating look before turning with a dramatic swish of his cloak, his companions following. As they departed, Madame Bones turned to Dumbledore. "You should leave immediately, Albus. I can handle the cleanup here, but that confrontation will have consequences. Lucius won't let this go easily." "Thank you, Amelia." Dumbledore nodded gratefully. "We'll return directly to Hogwarts." "Wait," Ben protested. "What about the cottage? And I need to analyze this device, track where Cryosplitter might have gone." "Both can be addressed from the safety of Hogwarts," Dumbledore insisted. "Madame Bones is right, we've attracted too much attention today." Harry felt a mix of disappointment and relief. While he'd been excited to see their potential new home, the encounter with Malfoy had left him shaken. There was something in the man's eyes when he looked at Harry, a cold calculation that reminded him of a predator sizing up prey. "Fine," Ben conceded, securing the dimensional anchor in his pocket. "But we're not hiding away forever. Harry deserves a life beyond castle walls. And he shall have one," Dumbledore promised. "Just perhaps not today." As they used Madame Bones's private flute connection to return directly to Hogwarts, Harry couldn't shake the feeling that their world had just gotten significantly more complicated. Between Cryosplitter's dimensional scheme and the unwanted attention from wizards like Malfoy, the relative peace of their training months seemed suddenly fragile. Yet alongside that concern was a surge of pride. He'd helped in the confrontation, using his alien magic effectively in a real situation. Ben had called him partner, not kid, not sidekick, but partner. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. That evening found Ben and Harry in their Hogwarts quarters, which had evolved over the months from basic accommodations to a comfortable home. Magical and mundane items coexisted, moving photographs next to Ben's collection of sumo slammer cards, magical textbooks alongside comic books, and a wizard chess set whose pieces had developed an oddly respectful relationship with Ben's extraterrestrial tech gadgets. Ben sat at a desk they'd converted into a workbench, the dimensional anchor connected to both Kevin's device and a magical crystal array Professor Flitwick had provided. Harry lounged on his bed nearby, practicing minor spells with his wand, a training wand Ollivander had custom-made and sent to Hogwarts after hearing about Harry's unique magical situation. "Any luck?" Harry asked, successfully levitating a feather with a whispered Wingardium Leviosa. "Some," Ben replied, adjusting a connection. "The anchor's storing dimensional coordinates, like GPS points, but for realities instead of locations. I've identified 3 distinct dimensional signatures so far. Is one of them your home dimension?" Ben checked the readings. "No. Which means Cryosplitter isn't trying to get home either. He's mapping new dimensions for some reason." Harry let the feather drift down and sat up. "Maybe he's looking for something. Or somewhere to hide. Maybe." Ben ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "I just can't figure out his endgame. Dimensional tech this advanced isn't for petty crime. He's planning something bigger." Their theorizing was interrupted by a knock at their door. Harry opened it to find Professor McGonagall, now officially his magical guardian, looking unusually solemn. "Good evening, Mr. Potter, Mr. Tennyson. I trust you've recovered from today's excitement." "We're fine," Harry assured her. "Ben's working on the device we got from Cryosplitter." McGonagall nodded, stepping inside. "The headmaster asked me to inform you that there have been developments following your encounter in Nocturne Alley." Ben set down his tools. "What kind of developments?" "Lucius Malfoy has formally petitioned the Wisengamot, our High Court, to review Harry's guardianship arrangement," she explained, lips thin with displeasure. "He's citing concerns about Harry's unorthodox magical development and your extraterrestrial status, Mr. Tennyson." "Can he do that?" Harry asked, alarm evident in his voice. "He can attempt it," McGonagall answered. Mr. Malfoy has considerable political influence. However, our arrangement is magically binding and approved by Gringotts. The headmaster believes the challenge will ultimately fail. But? Ben prompted, sensing there was more. McGonagall sighed. But it means increased scrutiny. The Ministry may insist on evaluating Harry's magical abilities. And there have been leaks to the press. She handed them a newspaper, the Daily Prophet, with the headline, "Boy who lived discovered with mysterious guardian, where has Harry Potter been hiding?" Below was a blurry magical photograph clearly taken in Knockturn Alley, showing Harry with partially transformed heat blast arms. "Great," Ben muttered. "So much for keeping a low profile." Harry stared at the paper, conflicting emotions crossing his face. "Everyone's going to know about me now, aren't they? About my alien magic. I'm afraid wizarding fame was always in your future, Harry," McGonagall said gently. "You've been something of a legend since that night. This merely accelerates matters." "Well, if we can't avoid attention, we might as well control the narrative," Ben decided, tapping the photograph. "We show the wizarding world that Harry's unique magic isn't something to fear, it's something amazing." "And how do you propose to do that?" McGonagall asked skeptically. Ben grinned. "The same way superheroes always win public support, saving people. The next time there's a magical emergency, we'll be there. Show everyone that Harry's powers are a force for good." Harry brightened at this approach. "Like how you became a hero back in your dimension." "Precisely." Ben ruffled Harry's hair. "Plus, more field experience will help you master your abilities better than any amount of classroom training." McGonagall looked like she wanted to object but instead gave a resigned sigh. "I can see I won't dissuade either of you from this course. Just promise me you'll exercise caution. Both Malfoy and this Cryosplitter character present real dangers." "We promise," Harry said solemnly, then added with a grin, "Wildmutt's honor." After McGonagall left, Harry returned to his bed but found himself unable to focus on spell practice. The newspaper lay beside him, the moving photograph cycling through the moment when his arms had transformed. "Ben," he asked quietly. "Do you think people will be scared of me? Because of my powers?" Ben abandoned his work and came to sit beside Harry. "Some might be, at first," he admitted honestly. "People fear what they don't understand. But that fear usually comes from ignorance. Once they see who you really are, a good kid using amazing abilities to help others, most will come around. And the ones who don't? Their loss," Ben shrugged. "Look, in my dimension, I've been called everything from a menace to Earth's greatest hero, sometimes in the same week. What matters isn't what others think of your powers, it's what you do with them." Harry considered this, then nodded resolutely. "Then we'll just have to show them I'm using them right." "That's the spirit," Ben agreed. "And tomorrow, I'm thinking we take a proper look at that cottage in Hogsmeade. If we're going public anyway, might as well have our own headquarters away from the castle." This brought Harry's smile back full force. "With a training room? And maybe a lab for your alien tech?" "Absolutely. The works." Ben grinned. A proper hero needs a proper base, after all. Later, as Harry slept, Ben returned to the dimensional anchor, working quietly by wand light. The device was revealing more complexities than he'd initially realized, not just coordinates, but temporal markers as well. Cryosplitter wasn't just mapping dimensions, he was mapping specific moments in time within those dimensions. "What are you up to?" Ben murmured, studying the pulsing core. Whatever the villain's plan, it was becoming increasingly clear that the stakes extended far beyond just getting home. Dimensions, magic, time itself, all were being manipulated towards some unknown end. Ben glanced at Harry's sleeping form, peaceful despite the day's chaos. 6 months ago, he'd made a promise to protect this kid he'd found in a cupboard. Now, with interdimensional threats and wizarding politics both closing in, that promise seemed more important, and more challenging, than ever. "Don't worry, partner," he whispered. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." The following weeks brought dramatic changes to their lives. True to his word, Dumbledore arranged for them to take possession of the groundskeeper's cottage in Hogsmeade, a sturdy stone building that, while small and initially dusty, had good bones and a surprising amount of space once they cleared out decades of accumulated junk. Renovation became their hobby between training sessions and Ben's ongoing analysis of the dimensional anchor. Harry discovered a natural talent for the practical aspects of household spells, taking pride in learning to magically repair furniture and clean windows. Ben, meanwhile, focused on security, using a combination of his technical knowledge and magical assistance from Professors Flitwick and McGonagall to create safeguards against both mundane and magical threats. Proximity wards connected to this sensor, Ben explained one afternoon, showing Harry a modified device on the cottage wall. "If anyone with hostile intent crosses the boundary, we'll know immediately." Plus Wildmutt sent markers all around the perimeter, Harry added with a grin. Ben had transformed into the bestial alien the previous day to establish a territorial warning that would deter most magical creatures from approaching uninvited. Their domestic preparations were frequently interrupted, however, by the fallout from their public discovery. The Daily Prophet ran near-daily articles speculating about Harry's mysterious hybrid magic and Ben's origins. Ministry officials made increasingly persistent requests for interviews and demonstrations, which Dumbledore skillfully deflected but couldn't permanently prevent. Then came the incident that changed everything. They were in Hogsmeade Village on a crisp autumn afternoon, purchasing supplies for the cottage. Despite the occasional stares from villagers who recognized Harry from the Prophet, it had been a pleasant outing. They were just leaving Dervish and Banjas with magical household tools when screams erupted from the far end of the main street. "What's happening?" Harry asked, instinctively moving closer to Ben. Ben was already activating the Omnitrix. "Don't know, but it doesn't sound good." More shouts came, along with what sounded like breaking glass and a thunderous roar that was definitely non-human. Villagers began running past them, some disapparating on the spot. "Something's attacking the three broomsticks," a fleeing witch cried, pointing back toward the popular pub. Ben looked at Harry. "Ready to be heroes?" Harry nodded, a mixture of excitement and nervousness crossing his face. "Ready. Then follow my lead, but stay at a safe distance until we know what we're dealing with," Ben instructed, selecting an alien form. With a flash of green light, he transformed into a blue moth-like alien with 4 wings and a spectral appearance. "Big Chill," he announced, his icy breath visible in the air. "Let's go." They rushed toward the commotion, Big Chill flying ahead while Harry ran behind, already preparing mentally for which alien power might be needed. As they approached the 3 broomsticks, they saw the source of the chaos, a massive, troll-like creature with mottled gray skin and a club the size of a small tree was smashing the pub's front wall, while terrified patrons scrambled for safety. Mountain Troll, Harry identified, remembering his magical creature's lessons. "They're supposed to be really stupid but super strong." And apparently hungry for pub food, Big Chill observed as the troll reached through a broken window to grab at fleeting patrons. "Time to put this monster on ice." He swooped toward the troll, turning intangible to avoid a wild swing of its club, then exhaled a freezing breath that encased the creature's arm in ice. The troll bellowed in rage, smashing its frozen limb against the building to shatter the ice. "Harry, I need crowd control," Big Chill called. "Get the civilians clear while I contain Big and Ugly." Harry nodded, running toward a group of witches and wizards huddled behind an overturned cart. "Everyone move back," he shouted. "We're handling this." An elderly wizard looked skeptically at the small boy. "You? But you're just a child." Harry didn't waste time arguing. "Gray matter," he murmured, focusing his magic. Green energy flowed through him as his mind suddenly expanded with enhanced intelligence and analytical capability. Looking at the situation with gray matter's genius-level perception, he immediately assessed the safest evacuation route. The structural integrity of the buildings on the south side remains compromised by the troll's impact, he explained rapidly, his vocabulary shifting to match his temporarily enhanced intellect. Evacuate through the northern alley, maintaining a minimum safe distance of 50 meters from the conflict zone. The probability of collateral magical discharge necessitates prompt withdrawal. The clarity and authority in his voice, despite coming from a 7-year-old, snapped the adults into action. They began organizing themselves, helping the injured toward the route Harry indicated. Meanwhile, Big Chill was having limited success with the troll. His ice attacks slowed the creature but couldn't completely immobilize it. Each frozen limb would eventually break free with the troll's immense strength. This isn't working, he muttered, dodging another swing of the club. Need to change tactics. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest flashed, and in a surge of green light, Big Chill transformed into a massive, dinosaur-like alien with armored skin. Humongosaur. The new form charged the troll, matching its size and strength. The two giants collided with a thunderous impact that shook the nearby buildings. Harry, having successfully directed the civilians to safety, turned his attention back to the battle. His gray matter transformation was fading, but he'd already analyzed the troll's weaknesses. Ben, he shouted. Trolls have a vulnerable spot at the base of the skull. Hit it there. Humongosaur grappled with the troll, trying to maneuver into position. Little busy, staying unclubbed, here. The troll was stronger than expected, its primitive rage making it unpredictable. It slammed Humongosaur into the side of the 3 broomsticks, causing part of the roof to collapse. Madame Rosmerta, the proprietress, shouted indignantly from a safe distance about the destruction of her establishment. Harry knew he needed to help more directly. Diamondhead, he called, focusing on the feeling of crystalline strength. His arms transformed into the glittering, faceted limbs of Ben's Petrosapien form. Concentrating hard, he extended the transformation further than he had before, letting it spread across his chest and legs until only his head remained human. With his partially crystallized body, Harry took aim at the rampaging troll. Hey, ugly, he shouted to get its attention. When the troll turned, Harry thrust his transformed arms forward, launching a barrage of crystal shards that struck the creature's face with pinpoint accuracy. The troll roared in pain and rage, momentarily releasing Humongosaur to swipe at its eyes. This gave Humongosaur the opening he needed. With a powerful leap, he circled behind the disoriented troll and delivered a precise strike to the base of its skull with both massive fists clasped together. The troll swayed, its eyes rolling back, then collapsed forward with an earth-shaking thud that cracked the cobblestone street. Is it dead? Harry asked, approaching cautiously, his crystalline body glinting in the sunlight. Humongosaur shook his head, checking the fallen creature. Just unconscious. Nice teamwork, partner. Around them, the villagers who had remained at a safe distance began to approach, murmuring in amazement. Someone started clapping, and soon a cheer went up from the gathered crowd. It's the boy who lived. Did you see what he did? Merlin's beard, he turned himself to crystal. And that dinosaur creature, it changed from a moth thing. The Omnitrix timed out, returning Ben to human form in a flash of green. This elicited more gasps and excited whispers from the onlookers. Harry's transformation also receded, leaving him fully human once more, though the effort left him breathing heavily. You okay? Ben asked, kneeling beside him. Harry nodded. That was the longest I've held a transformation. Feels weird when it goes back. Their moment was interrupted by the arrival of several official-looking wizards who apparat into the village square. Harry recognized Madame Bones among them, along with what appeared to be magical law enforcement officers. Well, Madame Bones said, surveying the scene, the unconscious troll, the damaged pub, the cheering villagers. It seems the reports of a disturbance were not exaggerated. Her stern expression softened slightly. Nor were the reports of heroic intervention, it appears. Ben stepped forward. The troll was attacking civilians. We did what was necessary to contain the threat. So I see. Madam Bones adjusted her monocle. And rather effectively too, from the looks of it. Mountain trolls are notoriously difficult to subdue. One of her officers leaned in to whisper something, and she nodded. It seems we have a broader situation. Mountain trolls don't typically venture into populated areas without cause. This one appears to have been magically compelled. There are traces of a confundus charm and what might be a compulsion hex. Someone sent it here deliberately? Harry asked, alarmed. It would appear so. Madam Bones's expression darkened. Which raises concerning questions about who and why. As the DMLE personnel secured the troll for transport and began repairs on the damaged buildings, a reporter from the Daily Prophet who had apparently been in the village approached, quick quotes quill already scratching across parchment. Mr. Potter. Rita Skeeter, Daily Prophet, she introduced herself with a predatory smile. Would you care to comment on your astonishing display of magic? Witnesses say you transformed your body into living crystal. Before Harry could respond, Ben stepped between them. Harry just helped save lives using abilities he's trained hard to control. That's the only comment you need. And you, Rita continued undeterred, eyeing Ben with keen interest. Your transformations are even more complete. Some might say, unnaturally so. Are you using forbidden magic? Experimental potions? Our readers would be fascinated to know. No comment, Ben stated firmly, guiding Harry away from the persistent reporter. But Rita Skeeter was not so easily dismissed. Sources close to the ministry suggest there are concerns about the influence you're having on young Harry. Is it true you're an interdimensional being with unknown powers? Is Harry Potter being groomed as a weapon? The accusation made Ben stop and turn, anger flashing in his eyes. Before he could respond, however, Harry spoke up. Ben is my guardian and my friend, he said clearly, standing tall despite his small stature. He rescued me from people who locked me in a cupboard and taught me how to use my magic safely. I help people because that's what heroes do, not because anyone's making me. The directness of the statement, coming from the child himself, momentarily silenced even Rita Skeeter. Her quill paused, hovering over the parchment. Well said, Mr. Potter, Madam Bones interjected, having overheard the exchange. Perhaps you should direct your questions to the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, Ms. Skeeter. We have an official statement regarding today's incident. As Madam Bones deftly redirected the reporter, Ben and Harry slipped away toward their cottage. The village residents they passed nodded respectfully or smiled, some even thanking them for their intervention. So much for keeping a low profile, Ben commented as they reached the path to their home. Harry shrugged. You said it yourself, if we can't avoid attention, might as well control the narrative. Using my own words against me. Cheeky. Ben laughed, then grew more serious. But that troll being magically compelled worries me. Could be random dark wizard mischief, but... Or it could be related to Malfoy, Harry finished the thought. Creating a situation where we'd have to use our powers publicly. Ben nodded grimly. We need to be even more careful now. If someone's targeting us, they might escalate. Despite the warning, Harry felt a surprising sense of relief as they reached the cottage. For months, they'd been training, preparing for something like this. Now it had happened, they'd faced a real threat together and succeeded. The public knew about them, for better or worse. At least we don't have to hide anymore, Harry said as they entered their home. That's something, right? Definitely something, Ben agreed, ruffling Harry's hair. But before you get too comfortable with your new celebrity, remember we still have those transfiguration exercises McGonagall assigned. Harry groaned dramatically, but there was no real complaint behind it. After facing down a mountain troll, even magical homework seemed manageable. As Ben went to secure their cottage wards, Harry caught sight of his reflection in a window, just a normal-looking kid with messy black hair and a lightning scar. But now the wizarding world knew he was more than that. He was an Omni-Wizard. Partner to Ben Tennyson. And, it seemed, whether he'd planned it or not, a hero in training. The troll incident, as it came to be called in Hogsmeade, marked a turning point. The Daily Prophet's front page the next morning featured a surprisingly positive headline: "Boy who lived becomes boy who saves, Harry Potter's extraordinary magic protects Hogsmeade." While Rita Skeeter's article included some dubious speculation about Ben's origins, the overall tone celebrated Harry's heroism rather than fearing his unique abilities. Letters began arriving, first a trickle, then a flood. Wizarding children asking for details about his powers. Parents expressing gratitude for saving the village. Even a few international inquiries from magical researchers interested in the fusion of alien technology and wizardry. Dumbledore had arranged for all mail to be screened for harmful magic before reaching them, which proved prescient when a few cursed letters were intercepted. Apparently not everyone appreciated Harry's public emergence or his unconventional guardian. 3 howlers and a jinxed envelope today, Ben reported one morning, reviewing the security logs. The howlers were just the usual, corrupting our traditions nonsense, but the jinx was nasty, a tracking hex combined with a compulsion charm. Harry looked up from his breakfast. "Someone trying to find our cottage?" "Looks that way." Fortunately, the screening wards caught it. Ben set aside the report. On the bright side, Professor Snape sent word that he's completed his analysis of that strange residue we found on the Trolls Club. And? Harry prompted, curious. Despite Snape's perpetually sour demeanor, the potions master had proven surprisingly helpful with their investigations, his expertise in dark magic detection unmatched among the Hogwarts staff. Traces of a rare potion ingredient, erumpent fluid mixed with powdered Peruvian vipertooth scales. Ben grimaced. Nasty combination, highly illegal, and according to Snape, a signature component in potions created by a specific dark wizard supplier who operates out of Nocturne Alley, Harry finished. Same place Cryosplitter was spotted. Ben nodded, looking troubled. The timing's too convenient. First Cryosplitter appears in Nocturne Alley with his dimensional device, then a magically compelled troll attacks Hogsmeade using potions from the same area. You think they're working together? Harry asked, alarmed. Cryosplitter and wizards. I think someone's coordinating events, Ben replied carefully. Whether it's direct collaboration or manipulation remains to be seen. Their discussion was interrupted by a knock at the cottage door. Ben checked the security monitor they'd installed, a magical version of a plumber's badge scanner that showed both physical presence and magical signatures. It's Bill Weasley, Ben announced, surprised. They hadn't seen the Cursebreaker since their Gringotts visit. When Ben opened the door, Bill looked uncharacteristically harried, his long red hair disheveled and dark circles under his eyes. Sorry to drop by unannounced, he said, accepting Ben's invitation to enter. But I thought you should know immediately, there's been another dimensional energy surge, this time inside Hogwarts itself. Both Ben and Harry straightened at this news. When? Where exactly? Ben demanded. Last night, near the third-floor corridor in the East Wing. Bill ran a hand through his hair. Dumbledore's had that section restricted all year, rumor among the staff is he's hiding something important there. Whatever it is, someone or something tried to breach the protections using energy that matches your Cryosplitter's signature. Harry exchanged a worried glance with Ben. The thing from Vault 713? The one they moved to Hogwarts for safekeeping? Bill's eyebrows rose. You know about that? We guessed, Ben admitted. Cryosplitter scanned the vault, then the contents disappeared, and suddenly Hogwarts has a forbidden corridor. Doesn't take grey matter to connect those dots. Bill nodded grimly. Well, Dumbledore's doubled the protections, but he's concerned enough that he's called in some outside help, including me, for curse-breaking expertise. I thought you two might want to offer your unique perspective as well. We'll come right away, Ben decided, already gathering his equipment. Harry, grab the scanner we modified to detect dimensional energy. As Harry hurried to collect the device, Bill lowered his voice. There's something else you should know. Lucius Malfoy arrived at the castle this morning with 2 members of the Board of Governors. Officially, they're conducting a routine inspection, but the timing's suspicious, Ben finished. Right after a breach attempt, Malfoy shows up to inspect the castle. Exactly, Bill confirmed. And he specifically asked to review the security measures for dangerous artifacts being housed at Hogwarts. The implications hung heavily in the air. If Malfoy was somehow connected to Cryosplitter, or at least aware of what the interdimensional criminal was seeking, the situation was far more complex than they'd initially believed. 20 minutes later, they were hurrying through Hogwarts' massive front doors, having used the Floo connection Dumbledore had established between their cottage and the castle. The entrance hall was unusually quiet, most students being in morning classes. "Dumbledore's waiting for us near the 3rd floor," Bill explained as he led them up the marble staircase. The students have been told the area is off-limits due to routine magical maintenance. As they climbed higher, Harry noticed subtle changes in the castle's atmosphere. The portrait seemed more alert, suits of armor stood at attention rather than in their usual relaxed poses, and there was a faint hum of protective magic in the air. "The castle's defenses are activated," Harry observed, recognizing the magical signature from his studies. "I can feel them." Bill looked impressed. "Good catch. Hogwarts' sentient defenses only fully engage when the headmaster perceives a genuine threat. The fact that they're active now means Dumbledore's seriously worried," Ben finished. They reached the 3rd-floor corridor to find it blocked by a shimmering magical barrier. Professor McGonagall stood guard alongside a tiny wizard Harry recognized as Professor Flitwick, both with wands at the ready. "Mr. Tennyson, Mr. Potter," McGonagall greeted them with a nod. "The headmaster is expecting you. Mr. Weasley, you're to join Professor Babbling at the 4th junction for runic analysis." As Bill departed with a quick thumbs up to Ben and Harry, McGonagall waved her wand in a complex pattern, creating an opening in the barrier just large enough for them to pass through. "The headmaster is in the antechamber beyond the Cerberus." "The what?" Harry asked, certain he'd misheard. "Fluffy," McGonagall clarified, as if this explained everything. "Hagrid's pet. The first line of defense. Don't worry, the headmaster has temporarily relocated him for our investigation." The corridor beyond the barrier was dark and dusty, with cobwebs in the corners suggesting it had been unused for some time before being repurposed for security. They passed several empty classrooms before reaching a massive wooden door reinforced with iron bands. It stood slightly ajar, and from within, they could hear Dumbledore's voice in conversation with someone else. "Highly irregular, Headmaster. The board has concerns about housing such an object in a school full of children." Harry recognized Lucius Malfoy's cold drawl immediately and tensed. Ben placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder as they entered the room. The chamber was large and circular, with a trapdoor set into the floor at its center. Dumbledore stood near this trapdoor, facing Malfoy and 2 elderly wizards who must be the other governors. All conversation ceased as Ben and Harry entered. "Ah, Mr. Tennyson, Harry," Dumbledore smiled genially, though his eyes remained watchful. "Thank you for coming so promptly." Malfoy turned, his lip curling slightly at the sight of them. "More irregular consultants, Dumbledore. One might think the finest wizarding school in Britain would have sufficient expertise without resorting to external assistance. Mr. Tennyson's unique perspective on interdimensional matters is precisely what we require," Dumbledore replied smoothly. "Given the nature of last night's intrusion attempt." Ben ignored Malfoy, instead moving directly to the trapdoor, where scorch marks and a crystalline residue were visible on the surrounding floor. He knelt to examine them, pulling out the scanner Harry had brought. "Definitely Cryosplitter," he confirmed. "The energy signature matches exactly. He was here, trying to access whatever's below." "Which brings us back to our concerns, Headmaster," one of the other governors spoke up. "The stone should never have been brought to Hogwarts in the first place. If word of its presence here becomes widely known, I assure you, Governor Selwyn, that all appropriate precautions have been taken," Dumbledore interjected. The attempted breach was unsuccessful precisely because of our multi-layered defenses. Harry's curiosity got the better of him. "What stone?" he asked, then immediately regretted speaking when all eyes turned to him. "That," Malfoy said silkily, "is precisely the problem. The more individuals who become aware of the item's nature, the greater the security risk. Even celebrated young heroes." His emphasis made the compliment sound like an insult. Dumbledore, however, seemed to make a decision. Harry and Mr. Tennyson are already involved by virtue of their encounter with the interdimensional entity seeking the stone. Partial information in this case may be more dangerous than full disclosure. Despite Malfoy's obvious disapproval, Dumbledore turned to Ben and Harry. "The item in question is the Philosopher's Stone, created by the alchemist Nicholas Flamel. It possesses the power to transform any metal into pure gold and produce the elixir of life, which grants immortality to the drinker." Harry's eyes widened. "Immortality? That's what Cryosplitter is after." "Among other properties," Dumbledore nodded. "The stone is also, fundamentally, a transformer of essence, changing one form of matter into another. In the hands of someone with interdimensional technology. It could supercharge his device," Ben realized. "Amplify the dimensional anchor points he's establishing. With enough power, he could potentially create stable, permanent gateways between dimensions." "Precisely our concern," Dumbledore confirmed. "When Gringotts detected the initial scanning attempt, Nicholas and I agreed to move the stone to Hogwarts, where it could be protected by multiple magical safeguards." Malfoy's cane tapped impatiently against the stone floor. "A decision the board was not consulted on, I might add. Housing an artifact of such power, and danger, in a school is unprecedented." "The stone is secure," Dumbledore stated firmly. "It lies at the end of a series of chambers, each protected by enchantments created by Hogwarts professors. Even if an intruder managed to bypass Fluffy, they would still face numerous magical challenges before reaching the stone itself." Ben had been studying his scanner, which was showing unusual readings. "There's something else. The dimensional residue has a temporal component I haven't seen before. It's like Cryosplitter wasn't just trying to access this location but a specific moment in time." "Time travel?" Harry asked, remembering their lessons on temporal theory. "Is that even possible?" "With sufficient power and the right technology, yes," Ben said grimly. "And if he's targeting the Philosopher's Stone as an amplifier?" The implications hung heavily in the room. Even Malfoy appeared genuinely concerned rather than merely politically motivated. "This entity must be apprehended," he declared. "The Ministry should be fully involved. Horrors, unspeakables, whatever resources are required." "I have already briefed Madame Bones," Dumbledore assured him. "However, conventional magical defenses may prove inadequate against this particular threat. Which is why Mr. Tennyson's assistance is invaluable." Before the discussion could continue, a silver cat Patronus bounded into the room, speaking with McGonagall's voice. "Anomalous energy detected in the Forbidden Forest. Multiple signatures. Hagrid reports strange lights and crystalline formations appearing near the Acromantula colony." Ben was already activating the Omnitrix. "He's making his move, setting up another anchor point in the forest. We need to stop him," Harry said, determination evident in his voice. "Before he gets anywhere near the stone." Dumbledore nodded. "I shall accompany you. The castle's defenses are fully activated and will prevent any incursion in our absence." He turned to the governors. "Gentlemen, I suggest you return to the safety of the main castle while we address this threat." Malfoy looked as though he might object, but the urgency of the situation and the genuine concern in Dumbledore's manner seemed to convince even him that this was not the moment for political maneuvering. "Very well," he conceded. "But the board will expect a full report, Dumbledore. The safety of the students remains our paramount concern." As the governors departed, Ben selected an alien form and transformed in a flash of green light. Standing in his place was a velociraptor-like alien with a visor covering its face and wheels instead of feet. XLR-8, he announced. Harry, you up for this? Could be dangerous. Harry was already preparing mentally for what alien spells might be most useful. I'm ready. We're partners, remember? Dumbledore's eyes twinkled despite the gravity of the situation. Indeed you are. And formidable ones at that. He drew his wand. Shall we proceed? I believe haste is of the essence. XLR-8 grinned, his visor sliding down. Haste is my specialty. Hold on tight, Harry. As Harry climbed onto XLR-8's back, he couldn't help feeling a surge of excitement despite the danger. 6 months ago, he'd been a frightened boy locked in a cupboard. Now he was racing to confront an interdimensional threat alongside a superhero and the most powerful wizard alive. Whatever Cryosplitter was planning, whatever dangers lay ahead in the Forbidden Forest, Harry Potter was no longer the victim of his circumstances. He was an omni-wizard, with powers beyond anything the Dursleys could have imagined and a partner who believed in him. For the first time in his young life, he felt truly ready to face whatever came next. Chapter 3, Worlds Collide. The Forbidden Forest lived up to its name as XLR-8 zoomed between ancient trees with Harry clinging to his back, following Dumbledore's Patronus which glided gracefully ahead of them. Gnarled branches reached like skeletal fingers overhead, blocking most of the afternoon sunlight and casting everything in eerie shadow. The deeper they went, the more Harry felt a creeping sense of wrongness permeating the air. You feel that? He whispered to Ben. Yeah, XLR-8 replied, slowing slightly to navigate a particularly dense section. The atmospheric density is fluctuating. Dimensional barriers thinning. Behind them, Dumbledore kept pace with surprising agility for his age, occasionally waving his wand to clear particularly troublesome obstacles. Several Hogwarts staff followed, McGonagall, Flitwick, and even the perpetually scowling Professor Snape, whose knowledge of dark magic Dumbledore had deemed essential for this confrontation. There. Harry pointed ahead where an unnatural blue light pulsed between the trees. XLR-8 skidded to a halt at the edge of a clearing that shouldn't have existed. The ancient trees had been forcibly bent backward, their trunks warped and frozen in impossible angles as if space itself had been stretched. At the center floated what looked like a miniature galaxy, swirling blue energy with crystalline nodes orbiting a central core. And manipulating this strange construct was Cryosplitter, his crystalline body glowing with absorbed energy. You're too late, Tennyson, the alien called without turning. The network is already activating. 3 anchor points established, 2 more preparing to synchronize. The Omnitrix timed out, returning Ben to human form. He stepped forward, positioning himself protectively in front of Harry. Whatever you're planning, it ends here, Ben said. Dimensional manipulation on this scale could tear reality apart. You know that. Cryosplitter finally turned, his faceted eyes gleaming with cold amusement. Always the hero, even stranded in an alien dimension. His gaze shifted to Harry. And your little protégé. The boy whose magic has bonded with Galvan technology. Fascinating hybrid. Harry moved up beside Ben, refusing to hide. We stopped you in Diagon Alley. We'll stop you again. You recovered one component, Cryosplitter conceded. Merely a setback. The dimensional lattice requires only minor recalibration. He gestured to the swirling energy construct. This anchor point draws power from the magical convergence beneath this forest, quite ingenious, repurposing magical energy for dimensional manipulation. Dumbledore and the other professors had arrived, spreading out to surround the clearing. The headmaster stepped forward, his wand held casually but ready. I believe introductions are in order, he said calmly. I am Albus Dumbledore, headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. You are trespassing on protected grounds. Cryosplitter's crystalline form shifted, plates rearranging in what might have been amusement. I am familiar with your identity, wizard. Your reputation extends further than you might imagine. He turned back to his device. Your concept of trespass is irrelevant. Dimensional constants supersede local territorial claims. He means he doesn't care about boundaries, Ben translated. Typical villain attitude. Dumbledore nodded slightly. Nevertheless, I must insist you cease your activities. The magical equilibrium of this forest is delicate. Precisely why I selected it, Cryosplitter replied. Dimensional thinning occurs naturally at points of magical convergence. Your forbidden forest sits atop a nexus of ley lines that permeates multiple realities. As they spoke, Harry noticed strange crystalline formations growing at the base of nearby trees, similar to the residue they'd found near the trapdoor, but actively spreading like frost on a winter window. Ben, he whispered, pointing discreetly. Ben saw it too. He's stalling. Whatever that device is doing, it's already affecting our reality. Dumbledore had also noticed. With a subtle movement of his wand, he sent a silent signal to the other professors. McGonagall and Flitwick began quietly casting perimeter wards while Snape withdrew a vial of swirling silver liquid from his robes. I believe we've extended sufficient courtesy, Dumbledore announced, his grandfatherly demeanor hardening into something more formidable. Your device will be dismantled. You may leave peacefully, or we shall remove you by force. Cryosplitter's laughter was like grinding ice. Remove me? With your primitive magic? He raised his arm, revealing the modified weapon they'd encountered in Diagon Alley. Your energies are merely another resource to harvest. The crystalline alien fired without warning, not at Dumbledore, but at the dimensional anchor. The blast caused the swirling energy to expand explosively, sending shock waves rippling through the clearing. Trees creaked and groaned as reality itself seemed to warp around them. Now! Dumbledore commanded. The professors launched their coordinated attack. McGonagall transfigured the ground beneath Cryosplitter into quicksand while Flitwick sent chains of pure energy to bind him. Snape threw his potion, which exploded into a silver mist that froze everything it touched. Ben slammed down on the Omnitrix. Diamond Head. The crystalline alien charged forward, generating crystal barriers to contain the expanding dimensional energy. Harry, I need a heat source. The crystal formations are temperature sensitive. Harry didn't hesitate. Heat blast, he called, focusing on the feeling of flames and power. His arms transformed into the magma-like limbs of Ben's pyronite form. Heat radiated from them as he directed focused flames at the crystalline growths, which began to crack and recede. But Cryosplitter was far from defeated. With a surge of power, he broke free of the magical restraints, absorbing the energy from Flitwick's chains and freezing the quicksand solid. The silver mist from Snape's potion he simply phased through by briefly shifting between dimensions. Impressive coordination, he acknowledged, firing ice beams that forced the professors to scatter. But futile. The anchor point has already locked onto its target. The dimensional energy was now pulsing in a regular rhythm, and through its swirling center, Harry caught glimpses of another place, stone corridors, torchlight, a familiar doorway. He's targeting the third-floor corridor. Harry realized. He's creating a direct path to the Philosopher's Stone. Dumbledore's expression turned grave. He raised his wand, and for the first time, Harry felt the full power of the headmaster's magic, raw and ancient, filling the clearing with golden light that pushed back against the dimensional distortion. Your ambitions exceed your understanding, Dumbledore told Cryosplitter. The stone cannot be used as you intend. Its alchemy is bound by specific magical constants. Your understanding of the stone is limited by this dimension's physical laws, Cryosplitter countered, adjusting controls on his device. When properly synchronized with interdimensional energy, its transmutative properties can be applied to spacetime itself. The dimensional anchor suddenly emitted a high-pitched whine, and the portal at its center stabilized into a clear window showing the corridor outside the Cerberus chamber. Cryosplitter smiled coldly. Anchor point stabilized. Now to collect my prize. Before anyone could react, a new voice joined the confrontation, smooth, aristocratic, and unmistakable. I believe you'll find that more challenging than anticipated. Lucius Malfoy stepped from behind a massive oak tree, his black cloak billowing dramatically despite the still air. He was no longer playing the role of concerned school governor, his wand was drawn, his demeanor openly hostile. "Malfoy?" Ben growled. "I knew you were involved in this." But to everyone's surprise, Lucius pointed his wand not at them, but at Cryosplitter. "You overstepped our arrangement, creature. The stone was to be secured for our mutual benefit, not monopolized for your dimensional machinations." Cryosplitter's faceted eyes narrowed. "Ah," the ambitious wizard emerges from the shadows. "Your assistance in locating magical convergence points was useful, but ultimately, our goals are not aligned." Dumbledore's eyebrows rose. "An alliance, Lucius? With an interdimensional entity? Your desperation exceeds my estimation." "Not desperation, Dumbledore. Vision." Malfoy's cold gaze swept the clearing. "The power of the stone combined with dimensional technology offers opportunities beyond your limited imagination." "He's been helping Cryosplitter map magical power sources," Ben said, the pieces clicking into place. "That's why he was at Gringotts when the vault was scanned. That's why he showed up at Hogwarts after the trapdoor incident." Harry remembered something else. "And the troll attack. That was to distract everyone while they tested the dimensional technology near Hogsmeade." Malfoy's lip curled in disdain. "Clever child. Though the trolls served multiple purposes. Your public display of alien magic proved most informative for my associate." "Enough talk," Cryosplitter declared. He fired his weapon at the dimensional portal, expanding it further. "The window is open. The stone will be mine." But Malfoy wasn't finished. With a subtle gesture, he signaled to the surrounding trees, and suddenly a dozen robed figures emerged, Death Eaters, Harry realized with a shock, recognizing them from the magical history books he'd studied. "I think not," Malfoy said coldly. "Our arrangement stands. The stone's power will be shared, as agreed." The standoff created a moment of chaotic uncertainty. Dumbledore and the professors faced Malfoy's Death Eaters. Ben as Diamond had positioned himself protectively near Harry while keeping Cryosplitter in his sights. And Cryosplitter himself seemed to recalculate, eyeing the additional wizards with cautious assessment. Then everything happened at once. The Death Eaters attacked with a barrage of curses that lit up the clearing like twisted fireworks. Dumbledore conjured a massive shield that protected the professors while McGonagall animated the trees themselves to grab at the dark wizards. Snape moved with surprising speed, his wand a blur as he countered curses with lethal precision. Cryosplitter seized the chaos as an opportunity, firing his dimensional weapon at the portal. It expanded explosively, creating a tunnel of energy stretching toward the castle. "Ben!" Harry shouted. "He's making a direct bridge to the stone." Diamond had launched crystal shards that shattered against Cryosplitter's armor. "I can't get close enough. His dimensional phasing lets him dodge my attacks." Harry thought quickly, remembering their training sessions. "I've got an idea. Cover me." Without waiting for a response, Harry focused his magic, pushing past the partial transformations he'd mastered to attempt something new. "Gray matter," he called, channeling the intelligence-enhancing powers of the Galvan. His head tingled as his brain capacity temporarily expanded exponentially, allowing him to rapidly analyze the dimensional technology with newfound understanding. Then, without pausing, XLR8. Speed magic surged through his legs, and Harry dashed through the battlefield in a green blur, avoiding curses and ice blasts alike. He reached the dimensional anchor, his gray matter-enhanced mind immediately identifying its weak points. "Upgrade," he called next, transforming his arms into the liquid metal form of a galvanic mechamorph. He plunged his hands into the device, merging with its technology and feeling its operations from within. "What are you doing?" Cryosplitter roared, firing ice blasts that Harry narrowly avoided by temporarily boosting his XLR8 speed again. "Rewriting your dimensional coordinates," Harry replied, his voice strangely mechanized through his partial upgrade transformation. You mapped the anchor points wrong anyway. The stone isn't directly below the trapdoor, that's just the first security challenge. Cryosplitter charged toward him, but Diamond had intercepted, creating a crystal wall between them. Whatever you're doing, Harry, hurry. Harry's upgrade transformed hands worked at incredible speed, rerouting energy pathways and altering the dimensional frequency. With gray matter's intelligence guiding him, he understood exactly how to modify the anchor's targeting system. Almost. He muttered, sweat beading on his forehead from the strain of maintaining multiple alien transformations simultaneously. Got it. The dimensional portal suddenly shifted, the image of Hogwarts corridors disappearing. In its place appeared a swirling void filled with strange geometric patterns. No. Cryosplitter howled. What have you done? Harry disconnected from the device, his transformations receding as exhaustion hit him. Sent your portal coordinates to the space between dimensions, he managed, staggering slightly. A null zone. No exit. The anchor began to destabilize, energy arcing wildly as it lost its fixed points. Cryosplitter lunged for the controls, desperate to correct the malfunction, but the device was already collapsing in on itself. It's going to implode. Ben shouted, scooping up Harry and carrying him behind a crystal barrier. Everyone take cover. The warning came just in time. The dimensional anchor collapsed with a thunderous implosion that sucked everything nearby toward its center before releasing a shock wave that flattened trees for 50 yards in every direction. When the dust settled, Cryosplitter was gone, whether destroyed or sucked into the dimensional void was unclear. The Death Eaters were scattered, several unconscious, others disapparating to escape. Malfoy himself had vanished, likely fleeing the moment the anchor began to collapse. Ben transformed back to human form, checking Harry for injuries. That was either the bravest or most reckless thing I've ever seen, he said, relief evident in his voice. Using multiple transformations simultaneously. We haven't even practiced that. Harry grinned weakly. Grey matter thought it would work. The hard part was holding them all at once. Dumbledore approached, looking somewhat disheveled but unharmed. His eyes twinkled as he surveyed Harry. Most extraordinary magic, Harry. I believe you've just invented an entirely new branch of spellcasting. Alien combo spells, Harry named it proudly. Ben gives me the transformations one at a time, but my magic can blend them together. The celebration was short-lived, however. A silver phoenix Patronus soared into the clearing, speaking with the voice of Professor Sprout. Albus. The castle is under attack. Dark wizards have breached the entrance hall and are heading toward the third floor. Minerva and Filius are needed immediately. Dumbledore's expression hardened. It seems Lucius had a contingency plan. While we confronted one threat here, another team targeted the castle directly. McGonagall and Flitwick immediately began running back toward Hogwarts, while Snape approached Dumbledore with urgency. The stone, Headmaster. If they reach it, I am well aware, Severus, Dumbledore replied grimly. Return to the castle and assist in the defense. I shall join you momentarily. As Snape departed, Dumbledore turned to Ben and Harry. I must ask too much of you once again. The castle's defenses will slow the intruders, but they are numerous and determined. We need every capable defender. Ben was already activating the Omnitrix. Don't worry about us. Defending innocent people from power-hungry bad guys is kind of our specialty. He selected an alien and transformed. Jetray. The manta-ray-like alien could fly at incredible speeds. Hop on, Harry. Let's get to the castle fast. Harry climbed onto Jetray's back, but before they took off, he looked at Dumbledore. What about the dimensional anchor? Is it completely destroyed? Dumbledore surveyed the smoldering crater where the device had been. The physical apparatus, yes. But the interdimensional disturbances it created may have lasting effects. The barriers between realities have been weakened. One problem at a time, Jetray said. First we save Hogwarts, then we worry about dimensional barriers. With Harry securely on his back, jet rays shot into the sky, streaking toward the castle in a blur of red. Below them, the forbidden forest looked like a dark sea, and ahead, Hogwarts stood majestic against the afternoon sky, except for the ominous flashes of spelllight visible through its windows. They're inside, Harry noted grimly. Fighting in the entrance hall. Then that's where we're headed, Jet Ray replied, adjusting his trajectory. Ready for round 2? Despite the danger ahead, Harry felt a surge of determination. Ready. They swooped down toward the castle's main entrance, where the massive oak doors had been blasted open. Inside, chaos reigned. Students had been evacuated to their common rooms, but the entrance hall had become a battlefield. Hogwarts professors fought alongside animated suits of armor against a dozen Death Eaters. Spelllight crisscrossed the hall, scorching ancient stone and shattering windows. Jet Ray flew through the broken doors, immediately firing neuroshock beams from his eyes and tail that stunned 2 Death Eaters before they could react. Harry, I'm going to set you down on the stairs, Jet Ray called over the din of battle. Find a defensible position. Harry nodded as they landed. The Omnitrix timed out almost immediately, leaving Ben in human form. Great timing as usual, he muttered, ducking behind a pillar as a curse blasted stone where he'd been standing. Harry, stick close. But Harry had already assessed the situation with the tactical awareness their months of training had instilled. We need to get to the 3rd floor, he called to Ben. These are just the diversion team. The main force is heading for the stone. Ben nodded, trying to reactivate the Omnitrix, which remained in recharge mode. You're right. But we can't just leave everyone fighting here. Professor McGonagall appeared beside them, deflecting curses with impressive speed. Mr. Tennyson, Mr. Potter. The headmaster sent word you'd be coming. He's already on the 3rd floor, reinforcing the stone's protections. We need to get up there, Ben explained. Harry's right, this is just a distraction. McGonagall nodded sharply. Take the eastern staircase. It's a less direct route but should be clear of intruders. She turned to Harry. Potter, can your unique magic assist in this battle? Harry straightened, determination in his eyes. Yes, Professor. Then follow me. I'll create an opening for you to reach the stairs. With surprising strength, McGonagall seized both their arms and pulled them behind her as she advanced, her wand creating a powerful shield before them. Spells bounced harmlessly off the shield as they crossed the entrance hall. When they reached the eastern corridor, McGonagall gestured urgently. Go. We'll hold them here. Ben checked the Omnitrix, which was still recharging. We'll have to make a run for it until this thing resets. They sprinted down the corridor, the sounds of battle fading behind them. The eastern staircase was indeed clear, though the portraits along the walls watched them with obvious alarm, some shouting warnings about masked wizards on upper floors. Great, Ben muttered as they raced upward. So much for the easy route. They reached the 2nd floor landing without incident, but as they turned toward the next flight, 3 Death Eaters appeared from a side corridor. Before the dark wizards could react, Harry thrust out his hands. Wild Mutt, he shouted, focusing on enhanced senses and bestial strength. His body partially transformed, gaining the orange fur and powerful muscles of Ben's Volpomancer form. With a roar, he charged the startled Death Eaters, moving with animalistic speed that caught them completely off guard. Ben seized the opportunity, grabbing a decorative shield from the wall and throwing it like a discus at the nearest Death Eater, knocking the man's wand from his hand. Nice transformation, Harry. Harry's Wild Mutt enhanced strength sent one Death Eater flying into a wall, where he slumped unconscious. The second managed to fire a curse that Harry dodged with inhuman agility before pouncing on him. The third turned his wand on Ben, who was still wandless. Petrificus totalis, the Death Eater shouted. Ben dived behind a suit of armor, which took the spell and froze solid. The Omnitrix beeped, finally recharged. About time. Ben activated it instantly, transforming into a massive, dinosaur-like alien. Humongosaur, he roared, grabbing the frozen armor and hurling it at the Death Eater, who barely erected a shield in time. The impact still sent him staggering backward, giving Humongosaur the opening to charge forward and deliver a knockout punch that shattered the wizard's shield and rendered him unconscious. Harry's Wildmutt transformation receded as the immediate threat passed. That was amazing. We actually took down 3 Death Eaters. Save the celebration, Humongosaur cautioned. That was just the advance team. Come on. They continued upward, reaching the 3rd-floor corridor to find evidence of a much fiercer battle. The stones were scorched with spell damage, and several bodies in Death Eater robes lay unconscious or bound in magical restraints. Dumbledore's been busy, Humongosaur observed as they carefully advanced. The corridor leading to the Cerberus chamber was eerily quiet, the massive door at its end standing partially open. Humongosaur approached cautiously, Harry close behind him. I don't like this, Harry whispered. It's too easy. Humongosaur nodded in agreement, pushing the door open wider with one massive hand. Inside, the chamber was empty, no Cerberus, no waiting enemies, just the open trapdoor in the center of the floor. They're already below, Humongosaur realized. Going through the security challenges. Harry moved to the edge of the trapdoor, peering into the darkness below. I can see light down there. Some kind of flickering. A sudden explosion shook the castle, dust raining down from the ceiling. That didn't sound good, Harry said. Humongosaur transformed back to Ben as the Omnitrix timed out again. We need to get down there. Dumbledore might need backup. They stared at the dark opening, aware they were about to plunge into unknown dangers. Remember our first training sessions? Ben asked with a slight smile. When you couldn't even say, heat blast, without setting the curtains on fire? Harry grinned despite the tension. Now I can do 3 alien spells at once. You've come a long way, partner. Ben held out his fist for a bump, which Harry returned. Let's go save a magical artifact and stop some dimensional chaos. Just another Tuesday for us, Harry joked, then grew serious. Together? Together, Ben confirmed. They jumped. The darkness swallowed them briefly before they landed on something soft, Devil's Snare, Harry realized, recognizing the plant from herbology lessons. Before the deadly vines could entangle them, Harry called out, Heat Blast, and his arms transformed, emitting enough heat to make the plant recoil and create a path forward. They passed through a series of chambers, each designed as a security challenge by different Hogwarts professors. A room of flying keys, which they bypassed using XLR8's speed to catch the correct one. A giant wizard's chess set, already partly destroyed by whoever had passed through before them. A troll, larger than the one in Hogsmeade, already unconscious and bleeding. Looks like someone beat us here, Ben observed as they carefully edged past the troll. The next chamber contained a logic puzzle involving potions, with a riddle written on parchment and flames blocking both forward and backward passages. The puzzle had already been solved, one bottle was empty, its contents consumed by whoever had gone ahead. Only enough for one person to go forward, Harry noted, examining the tiny bottle that would allow passage through the black flames. The rest are poisons or will send you backward. Ben studied the flames thoughtfully. Maybe for a normal wizard. But I've got options. He activated the Omnitrix, scrolling through his aliens. NRG should be able to handle the heat from these flames. He transformed into the armored, radiation-based alien and reached toward the black flames. Yep, harmless to me in this form. I can carry you through. Harry was about to agree when he paused, an idea forming. Wait. I might be able to do this myself. He concentrated, focusing his magic. Heat blast. His arms transformed into the familiar magma-like limbs, but he didn't stop there. NRG, he added, attempting to layer a second transformation over the first. Green energy surged around him as his chest and legs took on characteristics of Ben's radiation alien, armored plates appearing over his torso while his arms remained fiery. "Harry, that's too much," Ben warned, seeing the strain on Harry's face. "You've never combined these two before." "I can do it," Harry insisted through gritted teeth. "Both are heat-based. They're compatible." Before Ben could stop him, Harry stepped forward into the black flames. For a moment, they engulfed him completely, then parted, recognizing a kindred energy. Harry stepped through unharmed, his hybrid transformation protecting him. NRG followed quickly. "That was reckless," he admonished, though pride was evident in his voice. "Impressive, but reckless." Harry let his transformation fade, breathing heavily from the effort. Had to know if it would work. Different alien combinations for different situations. "Save your strength," NRG cautioned. "I have a feeling we'll need everything we've got for whatever's ahead." The final chamber was vast and circular, dominated by a magnificent mirror in its center, the mirror of Heist, Harry recognized from Dumbledore's description during their magical theory lessons. Before it stood three figures, Dumbledore, facing off against Lucius Malfoy and, surprisingly, Cryosplitter, who appeared damaged but very much alive. "Impossible," Malfoy was saying. "The stone cannot simply be hidden by a mirror." "Not hidden, Lucius," Dumbledore replied calmly, despite being outnumbered. "Protected by desire itself. Only one who wishes to find the stone, but not use it, can retrieve it from the mirror's depths." Cryosplitter's damaged form sparked with energy as he scanned the mirror with a handheld device. "The old wizard speaks truth. The artifact is bound by intention-based magic. Fascinating security measure. Then we'll simply destroy the mirror and take the stone from its remains," Malfoy snarled, raising his wand. "I wouldn't advise that," NRG announced as he and Harry entered the chamber. "Breaking magical artifacts tends to release all kinds of nasty energy. Trust me, I've seen it happen across multiple dimensions." All three turned, Dumbledore looking relieved at their arrival while Malfoy's face contorted with anger. "The boy and his alien guardian," he spat. "Always interfering." Cryosplitter studied them with cold calculation. "You survived the anchor's collapse. Impressive. The Omnitrix bearer I expected, but you," his gaze fixed on Harry, "your hybrid capabilities exceed predicted parameters." "Harry has a talent for exceeding expectations," Dumbledore said proudly. "As does Mr. Tennyson." NRG moved forward, positioning himself between Harry and the villains. "How did you escape the dimensional collapse, Cryosplitter?" "Your young friend's sabotage was clever but incomplete," the crystalline alien replied. "The null zone he created served as a temporary pocket dimension, uncomfortable, but navigable with my phase shifter." He gestured to the device embedded in his chest. "It was merely a matter of recalibrating and shifting back to this reality." "Where he promptly sought new allies," Dumbledore added, glancing at Malfoy. "Having deemed his previous arrangement insufficient." Malfoy's lip curled. "Our goals aligned more completely once this creature understood the true value of wizarding power." "He's using you," NRG warned. "Once he has the stone, he won't need wizarding help anymore." "Perhaps," Malfoy acknowledged with chilling indifference. "But the power the stone offers is worth temporary alliances. The Dark Lord's return requires extraordinary measures." Harry's blood ran cold at the casual reference to Voldemort. The history books had made it clear just how terrible the Dark Wizard's reign had been. "You want to bring back Voldemort?" Malfoy flinched slightly at the name. "Mind your tongue, boy. You stand in the presence of your betters." "I don't see any betters," Harry replied boldly. "Just a bully and an ice cube who can't get what they want without cheating." Cryosplitter stepped forward, ignoring the banter. "Enough delay. The boy is the key." He pointed at Harry. "His hybrid magic can bypass the mirror's intention constraint. The fusion of alien technology with wizardry creates a loophole in the enchantment. Dumbledore's eyes widened slightly. You cannot be certain of that. My scans indicate a 78.3% probability, Cryosplitter countered. The Omnitrix energy within his magical core disrupts standard magical parameters. Malfoy's calculating gaze shifted to Harry. Then we shall use the boy. NRG stepped protectively in front of Harry. You'll have to go through me first. Gladly, Malfoy sneered, raising his wand. Avada Ked, Dumbledore moved with astonishing speed for his age, sending a wave of force that knocked Malfoy backward before he could complete the killing curse. Simultaneously, Cryosplitter fired his ice weapon at NRG, who absorbed the blast and redirected it as concentrated radiation. The battle erupted in earnest. Dumbledore and Malfoy engaged in a spectacular magical duel, spells of incredible power and complexity flying between them, lighting the chamber in brilliant colors. NRG and Cryosplitter clashed with elemental fury, radiation meeting ice in explosive combinations. Harry found himself momentarily overlooked in the chaos, which gave him an idea. While the adults were distracted, he edged toward the mirror of Heist. If Cryosplitter was right about his hybrid magic creating a loophole, perhaps he could retrieve the stone and get it away from everyone who sought to misuse it. He approached the mirror cautiously, remembering Dumbledore's warnings about its addictive properties, how it showed the viewer's deepest desires, not reality. As he gazed into its surface, he braced himself for whatever he might see. The reflection showed him standing exactly as he was, but not alone. Ben was beside him, a hand on his shoulder. Behind them stood a man and woman Harry instantly recognized from photographs, his parents, James and Lily Potter, smiling proudly. They were a family, whole and happy. Harry's heart ached at the image, but he forced himself to focus. I need the stone, he whispered to his reflection. Not to use it, to protect it. His reflection smiled and reached into its pocket, pulling out a blood-red crystal that gleamed with inner fire, the Philosopher's Stone. The reflection winked and placed the stone back in its pocket. At that same moment, Harry felt a weight drop into his real pocket. He reached in and felt the stone, warm against his fingers. It had worked. He had the stone. A cold laugh behind him shattered the moment. Thank you for confirming my theory, child, Cryosplitter said. While NRG lay temporarily immobilized under a pile of ice and rubble, the crystalline alien had noticed Harry's actions. Your hybrid magic indeed creates exceptions to standard magical constraints. Harry backed away, hand protectively covering his pocket. You won't get it. I've calculated the probability of 17 different scenarios from this point, Cryosplitter informed him coldly. In 15 of them, I obtain the stone. The remaining 2 require intervention factors currently unavailable to you. Harry glanced around desperately. Dumbledore and Malfoy were still locked in magical combat, neither able to assist. Ben was struggling to free himself from the ice encasing his NRG form. He was on his own. Or was he? Harry thought quickly, remembering everything he'd learned about his unique powers over the past months. If single alien transformations were powerful, and combining 2 had gotten him through the black flames, what would happen if he pushed even further? It was risky, potentially dangerous, but the alternative was letting Cryosplitter get the stone. Taking a deep breath, Harry centered himself and began focusing his magic. Gray matter, he started, feeling his mind expand with enhanced intelligence. XLR8, he continued, speed magic coursing through his legs. Diamondhead, he added, his arms transforming into crystalline appendages. Each transformation built upon the last, green energy swirling around him in increasingly complex patterns. The strain was immense, but Harry pushed through it, drawing on every lesson, every training session with Ben. Impossible, Cryosplitter breathed, his scanner beeping frantically as it registered the unprecedented energy combination. The human body cannot sustain multiple alien physiologies simultaneously. I'm not just human, Harry replied, his voice echoing strangely as his transformation stabilized. I'm an Omni-Wizard. With gray matter's intelligence guiding his strategy, XLR-8 speed enhancing his movements, and Diamondhead's crystalline structure protecting his body, Harry launched his attack. He moved in a blur, circling Cryosplitter faster than the alien could track. As he ran, he fired crystal shards from his transformed arms, each one precisely aimed at weak points in Cryosplitter's damaged armor that gray matter's intelligence had identified. Cryosplitter retaliated with ice beams that Harry easily dodged, his speed making him nearly untouchable. Each pass, he landed more hits, crystal shards embedding themselves in Cryosplitter's phase shifter and weapon systems. Your energy levels are destabilizing, Cryosplitter warned, genuine concern in his voice. This combination will tear your cellular structure apart. Harry knew he was right, he could feel the strain building, pain lancing through him as his body struggled to maintain the multiple transformations. But he needed just a little longer. Upgrade, he added, pushing beyond anything he'd attempted before. His right arm morphed from crystal to the liquid metal of a galvanic mechamorph, green circuitry patterns flowing along it. With one final burst of XLR-8 speed, Harry lunged forward and slammed his upgrade arm against Cryosplitter's phase shifter. Instantly, he merged with the device, his consciousness flowing into its circuitry. "What are you doing?" Cryosplitter shrieked, unable to break the connection. "Sending you home," Harry replied, using Upgrade's technological control to reprogram the phase shifter. "Your actual home dimension. Coordinates extracted from your own memory banks." The phase shifter began to glow, energy building as it prepared for dimensional transport. Cryosplitter struggled frantically, but the crystal shards Harry had embedded in his armor had immobilized him sufficiently to prevent escape. "No. My work here is incomplete. The stone will stay here, where it belongs," Harry declared, finalizing the transport sequence. A blinding flash of light erupted from the phase shifter, enveloping Cryosplitter in dimensional energy. When it faded, the crystalline alien was gone, transported back to his home dimension, his threat to this world ended. Harry collapsed to his knees, his multiple transformations receding as exhaustion overwhelmed him. The stone was still safe in his pocket, but the magical and physical toll of what he'd done left him barely conscious. Through blurry vision, he saw the tide of battle had turned elsewhere too. Dumbledore had finally overpowered Malfoy, binding the Death Eater in magical restraints. Ben had freed himself from the ice and returned to human form, rushing to Harry's side. "Harry! Are you okay?" "That was the most incredible thing I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot of incredible things." Harry managed a weak smile. "Did it work? Is he gone?" "Completely," Ben confirmed, checking Harry for injuries. "You reprogrammed his phase shifter to send him back to his original dimension. How did you even know how to do that?" "Gray matter figured it out," Harry explained tiredly. "Once Upgrade connected to his systems, I could see the dimensional coordinates stored in his memory." He reached into his pocket, withdrawing the Philosopher's Stone. "And I got this too." Dumbledore approached, looking battle-worn but relieved. "Most extraordinary magic, Harry. I believe you've just rewritten several laws of magical theory." He gently took the stone, examining it with wonder. "And you retrieved the stone from the mirror. Remarkable." "Cryosplitter was right about my hybrid magic creating exceptions," Harry admitted. "The mirror recognized my intention, I wanted the stone only to protect it, not use it." "A pure motive," Dumbledore nodded approvingly. "The best protection is often the simplest." Ben helped Harry to his feet, supporting him as they surveyed the chamber. Malfoy glared at them with undisguised hatred from within his magical bonds. "This isn't over," the Death Eater spat. "The Dark Lord's followers remain. And now they know of the boy's power, this abomination of magic and alien technology. They will never stop hunting him." "Let them try," Ben said firmly. "We've handled worse." Dumbledore waved his wand, silencing Malfoy with a casual flick. "I believe we've heard quite enough from you, Lucius. The Aurors will be most interested in your activities these past months." As if on cue, Professors McGonagall and Snape entered the chamber, followed by several Aurors including Madame Bones. The battle in the castle had evidently been won. The intruders have been captured or driven off, McGonagall reported, looking relieved to see them alive. Her gaze fell on Harry, concern immediately replacing relief. "Mr. Potter. You look absolutely dreadful." "Multiple alien transformations simultaneously," Ben explained. "We hadn't exactly worked up to that in training yet." Madame Bones approached, eyeing the captured Malfoy with satisfaction. "Lucius Malfoy. How unexpected to find you here among the attackers. The Wizengamot will be fascinated by your explanation." As the Aurors took charge of Malfoy and began securing the chamber, Harry found himself swaying on his feet, the adrenaline fading to leave only bone-deep exhaustion. "Hospital wing, I think," Dumbledore decided, conjuring a stretcher that floated gently beside Harry. "Madame Pomfrey will want to examine you after such magical exertion." Harry didn't protest as Ben helped him onto the stretcher. "What about the stone?" he asked Dumbledore. "It will be destroyed," Dumbledore replied. "Nicholas and I have discussed it, and after today's events, we agree its power presents too great a temptation. Some magic should not remain in the world." As they began the journey back through the challenges toward the castle proper, Ben walked alongside Harry's stretcher. "You know," Ben said thoughtfully, "I always figured I'd be the one to save you when we found Cryosplitter. Turns out you saved all of us." Harry smiled tiredly. "We're partners, remember? Sometimes it's your turn, sometimes it's mine." Ben laughed. "Fair enough. But maybe next time, consult me before trying to turn yourself into 4 different aliens at once." "No promises," Harry murmured, his eyes growing heavy. The last thing he remembered before drifting off was the proud look on Ben's face, not disappointment that Harry had taken risks, but genuine pride in what he'd accomplished. Harry spent 3 days in the hospital wing recovering from what Madame Pomfrey termed magical core exhaustion. Ben rarely left his side, using the time to analyze the data they'd gathered from Cryosplitter's technology. Dumbledore visited frequently, often bringing books or magical artifacts he thought might interest Harry during his convalescence. On the 3rd day, as Harry was finishing lunch, Ben entered the hospital wing looking unusually serious. He carried what appeared to be a modified version of Kevin's dimensional tracker. "Hey, partner. Feeling better?" he asked, taking his usual seat beside Harry's bed. "Loads," Harry confirmed. "Madame Pomfrey says I can leave tomorrow if I promise not to transform into any aliens for at least a week." Ben nodded, but his expression remained solemn. "That's good. Because I need to talk to you about something important." Harry set aside his lunch tray, sensing the gravity in Ben's tone. "What is it? Did something happen?" "I've been analyzing the data from Cryosplitter's phase shifter, the bits you extracted when you merged with it using upgrade. And I've made a breakthrough." Ben held up the modified tracker. "I can use this to create a dimensional portal back to my home universe." The words hung in the air between them. Harry had always known this moment would come eventually. Ben had family, friends, responsibilities in his own dimension. But somehow, it had always seemed distant, theoretical. "You're leaving," Harry said quietly. It wasn't a question. Ben nodded, his expression pained. "I have to, Harry. My family doesn't know what happened to me. Gwen, Kevin, Grandpa Max, they've been searching for me for months." "I understand," Harry said, trying to keep his voice steady despite the lump forming in his throat. "When? The dimensional coordinates will align properly tomorrow," Ben explained. "It's a narrow window. If I miss it, it could be months before another opportunity." Harry nodded, looking down at his hands. For a moment, he was that frightened 6-year-old in the cupboard again, watching his one chance at happiness prepare to leave. But he wasn't that child anymore. Ben had taught him to be stronger, braver. "Will you?" Harry hesitated, then forced himself to ask, "Will you be able to come back?" Ben's serious expression broke into a genuine smile. That's the other part one wanted to tell you. The portal won't be one way. Once established, I can use the coordinates to travel back and forth between dimensions. Hope surged through Harry. Really? You could visit? Not just visit, Ben said firmly. I'll still be your guardian, Harry. I'll set up a regular schedule, 2 weeks here, 2 weeks there. Azimuth can help stabilize the dimensional bridge on my side. I've already spoken to Dumbledore about it, and he agrees it's workable. Relief and happiness replaced the dread that had been building in Harry's chest. So you're not really leaving. Just, commuting. Ben laughed. Interdimensional commuting. Definitely a first, even for me. His expression softened. I wouldn't abandon you, Harry. Not after everything we've been through. You're family now. Family. The word filled Harry with warmth. He'd seen his parents in the mirror of Heist, his deepest desire was for family. And while Ben couldn't replace James and Lily Potter, he had given Harry something he'd never had before, someone who chose him, who protected him, who believed in him. So what happens now? Harry asked. With me, I mean, while you're commuting. You'll stay at Hogwarts, Ben explained. Start your formal magical education. Dumbledore thinks your alien magic has stabilized enough that you can begin training with a proper wand, not just the practice one. You'll still have our cottage in Hogsmeade for holidays. Harry nodded, processing this information. It made sense. Hogwarts was the safest place for him, especially with Death Eaters now aware of his unique powers. And my alien spells, he asked. Will they still work if you're in another dimension? The Omnitrix energy is permanently fused with your magical core, Ben assured him. Distance won't affect it. Though Dumbledore suggests focusing on mastering one transformation at a time from now on. That 4-alien combo nearly burned out your magic completely. Harry grinned sheepishly. It was pretty awesome though. Beyond awesome, Ben agreed with a laugh. Just maybe save the combo moves for genuine emergencies, not showing off. They spent the rest of the afternoon planning. Ben had prepared a communication device that would work across dimensions, allowing them to stay in touch even when Ben was in his home universe. They discussed Harry's upcoming magical education, the continued renovations to their cottage, and Ben's ideas for bringing some of his dimension's technology back to help with Harry's training. The following day, a small group gathered in the Hogwarts grounds near the lake. Dumbledore had erected privacy wards to ensure the dimensional portal wouldn't attract unwanted attention. McGonagall was there as Harry's magical guardian, along with Hagrid, who had become quite attached to both Harry and Ben during their months at the castle. The modified dimensional tracker was set up on a tripod, aimed at an empty space near the lake's edge. Ben made final adjustments while explaining the process to an interested Dumbledore. The portal will stabilize for approximately 2 minutes, he said. Just enough time for me to cross through. The anchor points on this side will remain, keyed specifically to the Omnitrix's energy signature, so I can return. Dumbledore nodded thoughtfully. Most fascinating. The merging of science and magic to bridge realities. When everything was ready, Ben turned to Harry, who stood trying very hard to look brave rather than anxious. 2 weeks, Ben promised, kneeling to Harry's eye level. That's all. Then I'll be back with pizza from Mr. Smoothie's and new Sumo Slammers cards. Harry nodded, forcing a smile. I'll be fine. Professor McGonagall says I can start proper flying lessons while you're gone. Just don't try combining XLR-8 with a broomstick, Ben warned with a grin. At least not until I'm back to see it. The dimensional tracker began beeping, indicating the alignment was reaching its peak. Ben stood and activated it, sending a beam of energy into the empty space. The air shimmered and split, forming a swirling portal through which a different world was visible, tall buildings, cars, people in ordinary clothes. Home, for Ben. That's my cue, Ben said, hoisting his backpack. He'd packed light, most of his possessions would remain in their cottage, a physical reminder of his promise to return. Harry couldn't contain himself any longer. He rushed forward, throwing his arms around Ben in a fierce hug. "Thank you," he whispered. "For everything." Ben returned the embrace tightly. "Thank you for showing me what being a real hero means." He pulled back, hands on Harry's shoulders. "Remember, no matter what dimension I'm in, you're my partner. Always." "Always," Harry echoed, stepping back to stand with McGonagall, who placed a supportive hand on his shoulder. Ben turned to the portal, activated the Omnitrix, and transformed into XLR-8. "Faster this way," he explained. "Less disorientation when crossing dimensional boundaries." With a final wave to the gathered group, XLR-8 dashed into the portal. There was a flash of green light, and then both Ben and the portal were gone, leaving only the dimensional tracker still beeping softly on its tripod. For a moment, the group stood in silence, staring at the empty space where the portal had been. Then Hagrid blew his nose loudly into a handkerchief the size of a tablecloth. "He'll be back," the giant said confidently, patting Harry so firmly he nearly fell over. "That one keeps his promises, he does." "Indeed," Dumbledore agreed, his eyes twinkling. "And until then, Harry, I believe you have a magical education to begin." Harry nodded, touching the communicator on his wrist that matched the one Ben had taken with him. It would be 2 weeks, 14 days, until Ben returned. But unlike his years with the Dursleys, waiting in darkness and loneliness, this wait had purpose. He had magic to learn, both wizarding and alien. He had friends who cared for him. He had a home. And he had a partner who would return, as promised, to continue their adventures together. "So, Professor," Harry turned to Dumbledore with determination in his green eyes, "when can I get my wand?" 2 weeks later, Harry sat on the front steps of their Hogsmeade cottage, reading through his new first-year spellbooks. Though still several years away from formal Hogwarts enrollment, Dumbledore had arranged for him to begin learning the curriculum early, given his unique circumstances. Beside him lay his new wand, 11 inches, holly with a phoenix feather core. Ollivander had called it unusual, especially when it had shot green and gold sparks upon choosing Harry. The wand maker had muttered something about brother wands and curious developments before packaging it up. Harry had spent the past 2 weeks dividing his time between regular magic lessons with Professor McGonagall and carefully practicing his alien transformations under Madame Pomfrey's watchful eye. Following the incident with the Philosopher's Stone, he'd agreed to a more structured approach to developing his hybrid powers, focusing on mastering individual transformations completely before attempting combinations. The afternoon sun was beginning to dip toward the horizon when Harry felt it, a subtle change in the air pressure, a faint humming that made the hairs on his arms stand up. He set aside his book and stood, eyes fixed on the space before their cottage gate where Ben had said he would open the return portal. Right on schedule, the air shimmered and split, forming a swirling gateway between dimensions. Through it stepped Ben Tennyson, unchanged after 2 weeks, except for the enormous backpack he carried and the wide grin on his face. "Honey, I'm home," he called out, laughing as the portal closed behind him. Harry raced down the path, nearly tackling Ben with the force of his welcome hug. "You came back." "Of course I came back," Ben replied, ruffling Harry's perpetually messy hair. "I promised, didn't I? Heroes keep their promises." He set down his backpack, which clanked suspiciously. "And I brought presents. Sumo Slammer's cards, a plumber's badge modified to work in this dimension, some of Grandpa Max's famous pancake batter, though I'm not sure that's a present so much as a punishment, and a few tech upgrades for our training room." Harry beamed, helping Ben with his bags as they headed inside their cottage. "I got my wand. And I can do Wingardium Leviosa on the first try now. Professor McGonagall says I have a natural talent for transfiguration." "Not surprising, considering you can transform parts of your body into alien physiology," Ben observed. "How's the alien magic coming along?" "I can hold Diamond Head for 20 minutes now without getting tired," Harry reported proudly. "And I figured out how to transform just my eyes into Wildmutt sensors so I can see heat signatures. As they settled into their cottage, sharing stories of their 2 weeks apart, Harry felt a contentment he'd never known before. His life had transformed as dramatically as any alien spell, from unwanted child in a cupboard to omni-wizard with a home, an education, and a family that spanned dimensions. Outside their window, Hogwarts Castle stood majestically against the evening sky, its windows beginning to glow with warm light as dusk approached. Tomorrow, Harry would return there for lessons, continuing his unique magical education. Ben would join him, helping Professor Flitwick with research on the intersection of alien technology and charms theory. Their adventure was just beginning. There would be challenges ahead, Death Eaters still at large, the lingering mystery of Harry's connection to Voldemort, and the complexities of balancing two different forms of magic. But Harry wasn't afraid. He had his wand in one pocket and the ability to transform into 10 different alien forms in the other. He had teachers who supported him and a guardian who crossed dimensions to be with him. Most importantly, he had found where he belonged, not locked away in darkness, but standing in the light as exactly who he was meant to be, Harry Potter, the boy who lived, student of Hogwarts, and the world's first Omni-Wizard. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.